The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, The Iron Bone Faction. Guide to Entering the Pit. This book is not a stallion article. The style is relaxed and secondary. The theme is a story about how a funny sect master develops a sect and cultivates disciples with different personalities by using the system. Of course, it can also be defined as a refreshing article. Readers who claim to be old readers and nitpicking should not enter the pit. Those who can't turn around and have to test the poison on themselves. Warning. 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 We are not responsible for the poison. Young man, I see that you have a unique skeleton and are a martial arts genius among 10,000. You can consider joining Mighty Gus Heng Sect as a disciple. Your future achievements will be limitless. In the pleasant mountains and fields, Jun Changxiao said to the warrior in front of him with a smile. The arc of his mouth, combined with his fair face, gave people a very handsome feeling. It's not a feeling, it's real. If a woman sees him, she will definitely scream and be fascinated. The warrior with a green scarf on his head said politely, "Sir, can you move your feet first?" Moving his sight downward, it turned out that Jun Changxiao had one foot on the person's face, and there was actually a big footprint on the other half of the face pressed against the grass. This means he was beaten. Judging from the posture of falling to the ground and the footprints left on the chest, he was beaten quite badly. Jun Changxiao retracted his foot and said apologetically, "I saw you flirting with my sect's most beautiful female disciple, and I couldn't help it. I'm so sorry." The warrior with the green scarf was speechless. It was really unlucky to meet a beautiful woman in the wild. Just go up and say a few words, and then be beaten by the head of the self-proclaimed Strongest Sect abbreviation. "Friend," Jun Changxiao said, "consider it." The green-clothed warrior said weakly, "I say I don't agree, is that okay?" "Yes." Jun Changxiao said seriously, "My Strongest Sect has always convinced people with virtue and never force people to do things against their will." "Sorry." The green-clothed warrior injured the pain and declined. "I have joined the Delinquent Sect and cannot become a disciple of your sect." He finally passed the Delinquent Sect assessment and became a registered disciple. How could he switch to another sect? What's more, Strongest Sect. As soon as he heard the name, it must be a completely rubbish sect in Xinjiang continent. It would be a waste of time and life to go there. "Hey." Jun Changxiao shook his head and said with regret, "Friends have no chance to join my Strongest Sect. Kian." He turned his head and said, "Didn't this guy bully you just now?" On a boulder not far away, a woman in white sat quietly. Her eyes were as clear as a stream and her skin was as white as snow. Although she was only 16 or 17 years old, she had all the hard conditions of a beauty. "Master." Kian raised her sleeves and said lightly, "He just wanted to touch my hand." "Pa." Jun Changxiao stepped on the green-clothed warrior's face again, his eyes cold and stern. "You are tired of living." He had a gentle face before, but suddenly became murderous, and his face turned faster than turning a page. The green turban warrior hurriedly said, "Sir." I didn't." He swore that he had a little idea just now, but he was beaten up before he even did it. At most, it was an attempt to take advantage. Jun Changxiao said coldly, Kian will not lie. I believe her. I must teach you a lesson today." Bang, bang, bang. Gusts of breeze blew on the face of the green-clothed warrior with a swollen nose and face. He didn't feel comfortable because his bones were almost broken by the beating. Damn it. Trying to raise his head, looking at the two gradually blurred backs, the green turban warrior clutched the soil and said hatefully, "I must take revenge." Jun Changxiao, the leader of the Strongest Sect. This Strongest Sect is incredible. It was founded by a warrior named Wang. Because he jumped off a cliff and didn't die in his early years, he was rewarded with a meal by a passerby. Later, he founded the Strongest Sect. The sect's purpose is to be a man of integrity and do things of integrity. The first generation leader worked hard and made a name for himself in the martial arts world in just over a decade. The sect also went from being a low-ranking sect to a 9th rank sect, becoming the most dazzling existence in Qingyang village. However, unexpected things happen. The first generation leader went to a brothel in the town to have fun, had a conflict with someone, was arrested by the government, and because he failed to escape from prison, he was executed on a chosen day. The entire sect was leaderless and began to decline. There is no such thing as eternity in the world. Even a 9th rank sect as strong as the Tegu sect is just a flash in the pan. Whenever the storytellers in the village mentioned the Tegu sect and the headmaster one who was beheaded after failing to escape from prison, they all sighed to the sky, and the children sitting on the benches listening to the story all shed tears. Although the Tegu sect has declined, it still exists. 3 disciples sat together and happily had a farewell dinner. One of them chose to stay and lived alone in the sect day and night, never leaving. Who is this person? It is the 2nd generation headmaster Jun Changxiao. To be exact, it was the former Jun Changxiao. Because 1 month ago, on the dark night, he got up and went to the toilet. As soon as he walked out of the hall, he was hit on the forehead by a plaque with the words Iron Bone School that fell off, and then died. It was no coincidence. Jun Changxiao, who came from Earth, traveled to this world and successfully occupied the body that was still warm. I traveled through time. Realizing that he was not dead, Jun Changxiao was stunned for a while, and then accepted the memory of the original owner, and then realized that he was lucky to become one of the thousands of travelers. Very good, very good. Peerless skills, magical skills, secrets, and various systems all appear. Since I, Jun Changxiao, have come here, I will dominate the other world like my peers, beat all kinds of geniuses, and become the supreme god, emperor, demon, saint, and immortal. Hard work pays off. After stepping on countless ants and squeezing countless fleas to death, the system was finally triggered. Ding. The Strongest Sect system is starting. Ding. The Strongest Sect system has started successfully and started loading the data panel for the host. Swish. After the mechanized sound ended in his ears, rows of data suddenly appeared in Jun Changxiao's vision. Sect name, Tegu Sect. Sect leader, Jun Changxiao. Sect level, 9 streams. Sect construction, level 1. Sect members, 100th. Sect contribution value, 0/100th. Sect mainline task, within 100 years, make Tegu Sect the strongest sect in Xingyou continent, with 100,000 disciples. If it is not completed, the host will be annihilated as soon as the time comes. P.S. Xingyou continent is full of spiritual energy, and the lifespan of ordinary people is 20,030 years. After seeing the tasks written in the mainline task, Jun Changxiao felt a chill on the soles of his feet, running straight up his thighs to his spine. After carefully reading the memories of the original owner, he learned that he was the only one in the Iron Bone Sect, and it was also the lowest level sect. He walked to the kitchen, raised the kitchen knife to his neck, hesitated for a long time, and put the kitchen knife down, and did not do anything iron-boned. A 9th rate sect. A sect that only has himself. Becoming the strongest sect on the continent within 100 years, recruiting 100,000 disciples? Is God joking with me, or is the system joking with me? Ding. In despair, a mechanized voice sounded in my ears. Congratulations to the host for turning on the system, and you will receive a space ring. Space ring. Jun Changxiao found that there was an exquisite jade bracelet on his right wrist out of thin air, with 4 small words space ring engraved on it, so he twitched his mouth and said, "This is the first time I've seen such a large ring. New book released. Please collect, recommend, reward, comment, complain, please, all kinds of requests. Chapter 2 Are you the leader?" Jun Changxiao is called Jun Changxiao because his parents hope that he will always smile and be happy all his life. After crossing the Xingyou continent and becoming the head of a sect and opening the system, he has completely forgotten how he should smile happily. It is absolutely difficult to make the Tegu Sect the strongest sect and attract 100,000 disciples to join. What's more, there is a 100-year deadline. Other people's systems either give equipment, experience, or level 999 with one sword. Why is it so fucked up here? Hey. Jun Changxiao sighed and said, as a traverser, how can I have the nerve To say hello to my colleagues, when I meet them, when I go out? Frustrated. Since I'm here, I have to live well, right? Headmaster Jun began to communicate with the space ring that was obviously a bracelet, and quickly established a relationship with it. I hope there are magical equipment and magical skills in it. Jun Changxiao prayed, and his thoughts merged into the wonderful space. After entering the interior of the space ring, he found that there was nothing in the ethereal area except a brick. Where are the magical equipment and magical skills? At worst, give me a divine beast egg and let me hatch it slowly. What a pity. There is nothing but a brick. Jun Changxiao walked over without giving up, and secretly said in expectation, could it be a divine weapon? He has read too many books, and knows that a qualified time traveler, a chosen son of heaven, even a stone dug out from a toilet, will be an ancient divine weapon that has been lost for a long time. Sect leader Jun began to imagine the wonderful picture of holding a brick in his left hand and a string in his right hand, and wandering around the world in a carefree manner. Snap. Jun Changxiao grabbed the brick and clearly felt a slight beating. He was suddenly overjoyed and said, there is a heartbeat. Could it be that there is a powerful person hidden in the brick, who will teach me the ultimate divine skills after awakening? The more he thought about it, the more excited he became, and he took the divine weapon in front of him. Looking back, Jun Changxiao's expression suddenly froze, and the blood in his body could not be restrained, and there was a possibility that it would rush up his throat. The brick showed a screen with text and a string of numbers on it. The remaining time for self-destruction was 99 years, 355 days, 23 hours, 58 minutes and 46 seconds. There was a small paragraph in the lower left corner, which said, complete the main mission within 100 years and the explosive device will automatically disarm. Ding. Ding. After several jumps, the time was reduced. Fuck him. Jun Changxiao threw the brick on the ground with one hand and cursed, this is not a magic weapon, it's a bomb. Ding. The brick fell to the ground, and the screen displayed the time from 23:58 to 22:58. Host. The system reminded, this thing is called the Soul Blaster. It has independent thinking and emotions. If you make it unhappy, it will only speed up the countdown. Plop. Jun Changxiao collapsed to the ground and cried, system, I don't want to play anymore. I want to go home. The system mechanically said, the system has been activated. The host must complete the main task. If you are passive in the process and wait for death, the Soul Blaster will explode in advance. Jun Changxiao spread his limbs and said weakly, where is the knife? Where is the knife? I want to commit suicide. Ding. Satisfy the host's first wish and receive a knife that is difficult to collect. Swish. A precious sword appeared in the space. Jun Changxiao almost vomited blood. His wish to go home was not fulfilled, and he wanted to commit suicide with a knife. He was happy to satisfy it. This pitfall. Jun Changxiao felt that he was being putted. But when he came to the Xinjiang continent and turned on the system, he could only accept his fate, so he adjusted the system panel data in front of him and looked at it carefully. The data of the sect name, sect leader, and sect members are easy to understand. What puzzled him was what the hell was the sect construction, level 1 and sect contribution value. 0 100th inches on the panel, host. A voice came from the system, sect construction includes a lot. The higher the level, the more sect functions can be opened. For example, the host can touch the sect construction with his mind to open the detailed data panel. There is also this function. Jun Changxiao closed his eyes and touched the forward sect construction with his mind. A small panel suddenly appeared in front of him with a brief explanation. Sect construction level 1, no function yet. Sect construction level 2, open the medicine refining pavilion. Sect construction level 3, open the casting pavilion. Sect construction level 4, open the talisman pavilion. Sect construction level 5, open the spirit beast pavilion. There was a line of small words at the end, which read, sect construction must be upgraded to level 5 before you can view subsequent functions. Jun Changxiao was speechless. How to improve the construction of the sect? To improve the construction of the sect, the host must recruit more members. Is that so? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. What does the sect contribution value mean? The system explained. The sect contribution value can be used to exchange for treasures in the sect mall. The sect mall? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up immediately. In his cognition, many novel protagonists have mals after obtaining the system and even give novice gift packs, directly giving a set of early pretentious face-slapping equipment. Jun Changxiao carefully looked at the system panel several times, puzzled. Why is there no sect mall? The host needs to obtain at least one contribution value to open the hidden sect mall panel. How to increase contribution value? To open the sect mall, the host must recruit more members. Hearing this, Jun Changxiao finally understood. The so-called Strongest Sect system, whether it is construction or contribution value, everything is inseparable from recruiting members. Okay, Jun Changxiao said with high morale. Starting tomorrow, start recruiting members. Reality is cruel. Because when he opened the 2 broken doors with peeling paint and posted the notice of recruiting disciples, no one asked for a month. Wait for another half a month. Just when Jun Changxiao was discouraged, Iron Qian came. She stopped in front of the notice of recruiting disciples posted at the door, walked in after a little hesitation, and said, I want to join the Strongest Sect. Jun Changxiao, who was squatting on the steps in front of the hall eating noodles, was stunned. After waiting for dozens of days, just when he was desperate, a beautiful woman came. This was undoubtedly super happiness for him. Iron Qian looked at him and said lightly, are you a fool? Swish. Jun Changxiao hurriedly threw away the bowl and chopsticks and enthusiastically handled the entry procedures for her. When he took out the seal of the head of the sect, Iron Qian questioned him, are you the head of the sect? Yes. Jun Changxiao straightened his chest and said seriously, I'm the head of the Tigu sect. I'm leaving the sect. Beauty, don't. After using all his tricks and pestering, Jun Changxiao finally kept Iron Qian, making the desolate sect no longer just him. Ding. Sect members. 200ths. Ding. Sect contribution value. 100th. Ding. Contribution value meets the requirements. The system opens. Sect mall. After a series of ding-dong prompts, Jun Changxiao pulled out the sect attribute panel and saw that under the main task, the full-word sect mall appeared out of thin air. Sure enough, there is a mall. Jun Changxiao was overjoyed, and his mind touched the sect mall. Swish. The scene in front of him changed, and a warehouse-like panel appeared, with many products listed on it. 9 transformation cleansing marrow pill. Dragon elephant prajna palm. Shocking dragon footwork. 5 element yin yang art. 1000-year ice armor. Holy flame body. Looking at the martial arts, pearls, and armor listed in the sect mall, Jun Changxiao's heartbeat accelerated. Just by listening to the names, you can tell that these things are absolutely awesome. The next second sect leader Jun's expression froze, because the exchange price displayed below each item started at a minimum of 10,000 contribution points. No way. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently, and he said, so expensive? Chapter 3 Newbie Gift Pack. With only 1 contribution point, he felt really screwed when he saw the products in the mall that could only be exchanged for 10,000 contribution points. Host. The system reminded, you are looking at the advanced mall. Huh. Jun Changxiao realized that there were several buttons on the left side of the mall panel, which were written as Novice Mall, Primary Mall, Intermediate Mall, and Advanced Mall. No wonder it's so expensive. It turns out that I was looking at the advanced level. He hurriedly clicked on the Novice Mall, and a new panel appeared. There is only 1 product in the Novice Mall, called the Novice Gift Pack, and the contribution point required for exchange is 1 point. Novice Gift Pack? Jun Changxiao was delighted and said, that's it. He didn't believe that there could be something cheaper than this in the mall. Ding. Host spent 1 contribution point and got the Novice Gift Pack, which has been transferred to the Space Ring. Ding. School contribution value. 0 Jun Changxiao didn't care that his contribution value had returned to 0 again, and hurriedly merged into the Space Ring and saw a red gift box next to the time bomb. Swish. He opened it excitedly. Ding. Host opens the Novice Gift Pack and gets 1 escape talisman. Ding. Host opens the Novice Gift Pack and gets 1 endurance talisman. Ding. Host opens the Novice Gift Pack and gets 1 galloping talisman. Ding. Host opens the novice gift pack and gets one seal talisman. After a series of prompts, 4 talismans appeared out of thin air in the space ring, and Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Escape. It sounds like it's for escaping. Endurance. It sounds like it's for defense. Galloping. It sounds like it's for hurrying. If you travel through another world, if you don't want to show off and get slapped in the face, but only know how to escape and get beaten, what's the point of living? Ding. Host opens the novice gift pack and gets one experience talisman. Experience talisman? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. What is this? The system explained. The experience talisman can be used to quickly improve the host's cultivation. Really? Jun Changxiao was overjoyed. It seems that this is the most valuable of all the things in the novice gift package. How to use it? Crush it. Snap. Jun Changxiao didn't even think about it and directly crushed the talisman engraved with the word experience. Hoo-hoo. In an instant, a majestic aura emerged from his body and flowed along the 8 meridians. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the 3rd stage of opening the meridians. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the 4th stage of opening the meridians. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the 5th stage of opening the meridians. After the experience talisman was crushed, Jun Changxiao's realm broke through from the 2nd stage of opening the meridians to the 5th stage of opening the meridians in one fell swoop. The warriors of the Xinjiang continent have a total of 12 main meridians in their bodies. If one meridian is opened, it is the 1st stage of opening the meridians, and if all 12 meridians are opened, it is the 12th stage of opening the meridians. Of course, opening the meridians is only the entry level of the Xinjiang continent. Above it are Martial Apprentice, Martial Master, Martial Master, Martial King, Martial Emperor, Martial Saint, and Martial Emperor. The stronger the realm, the stronger the strength. It is said that those who have reached the level of Martial King or even higher can fly in the air and take people's heads thousands of miles away. It feels so good. Feeling the strong energy gathering in his body, Jun Changxiao's face showed a sense of enjoyment. If the warriors who live in the Xinjiang continent and work hard to practice the mental method to break through knew that he could level up 3 levels by crushing a piece of paper, they would definitely be envious and vomit blood. Jun Changxiao took the yellow paper engraved with the words "Open the seal" and said, "What's the use of this thing?" The system said, "The seal opening talisman is used to unlock the seal of the difficult to collect knife." Is there a seal on that knife? Yes, the difficult to collect knife is suppressed by the seal, and the host must rely on the seal opening talisman to unlock it before it can be used normally. Jun Changxiao raised a black line. The weapon given by the first wish needs to be unsealed before it can be used. What a fucked up setting. Thinking of the pitfall system and the pitfall of the first wish, Jun Changxiao, who was walking on the road, sighed to the sky again. Stop sighing. Lu Qian said calmly, let's hurry up, otherwise the gates of Qingyang City will be closed, and we will have to sleep outdoors again. Since we want to develop our sect, we must recruit disciples. According to the memory of the former master, Jun Changxiao learned that Qingyang City will hold a recruitment for 100 sects in half a month, which will attract many young men and women to participate. This is a good opportunity to recruit members. So, Sect Master Jun brought Lu Qian over, and just now they happened to meet the green turban warrior in the wild. Qian. Jun Changxiao said with a trembling smile, I'm a little tired, how about taking a rest first? No. Lu Qian said indifferently. Jun Changxiao was speechless and could only continue on his way. Swish, swish. Suddenly, there was a sound of hurried footsteps behind him. Looking back, he saw several warriors in uniform chasing him and surrounding him. Senior Brother Li. The green turban warrior covered his face and said angrily, he was the one who beat me. Humph. The warrior called Senior Brother Li glanced at Jun Changxiao and said coldly, you are very brave. You dare to beat people from my Linquan sect. Linquan sect? Jun Changxiao felt that this sect sounded familiar. Lu Qian said calmly, Master, Linquan sect is a 9th-rate sect in Linquan village. So that's it. Jun Changxiao remembered. Hearing the woman calling him the master, Senior Brother Li said in disbelief, you are the master? Jun Changxiao was hurt. Brother looks so majestic, doesn't he look like a master? Senior Brother Li. The green turban warrior covered his swollen face and said, he said he is the master of the Strongest Sect. The Strongest Sect? Hahaha, isn't it the sect whose master visited a brothel, was caught by the government, and failed to escape from prison and was beheaded? I heard that the disciples had a farewell dinner. How can it still exist? The faces of the disciples of Lincoln Sect were full of disdain and ridicule. Although they are both ninth-rate sects, their Lincoln Sect, whether in terms of foundation or disciples, will crush the Strongest Sect. Ah. Jun Changxiao sighed secretly. He was speechless for a long time when he learned that the previous master Wang ended up with his head and body separated because of visiting a brothel. Men, it's normal to go out and relax. Since you have been caught, you should just accept the reformation honestly. Why do you have to take the risk of escaping from prison? Jun Changxiao couldn't figure it out because he hadn't really understood the purpose of the sect, to be a man of iron will and do things of iron will. Everyone, Jun Changxiao said with a smile, you stopped me just to humiliate my Iron Bone Sect? Bah. Senior brother Lee spitted and said, a rubbish sect theirs, to call itself the rubbish sect, and really thinks it is a big shot. What qualifications does a guy who hasn't even grown all his hair have to be the head of the sect? The new disciple is the same. He was beaten up by such a rubbish. It will be a disgrace to my Lincoln Sect if it gets out. The disciples of Lincoln Sect didn't take Jun Changxiao seriously at all, and humiliated and ridiculed him to the utmost. They are simply typical brainless villains. If I don't step on them, how can I live up to my identity as a time traveler? Jun Changxiao rolled up his sleeves and said, Qian, stay away. I want to teach these idiots a lesson. Luke Qian turned and retreated, but left a cold word. If you die, remember to pass the position of the head to me. Jun Changxiao almost fell down. This cold and arrogant woman, it turns out that she still has the ambition to covet the position of the head. If he hadn't been bound by the damn system, he would really be very happy to give the position of the head to Luke Qian, and then quietly be a leisurely and contented handsome man in the other world. Chapter 4 Side Quests. Okay. Jun Chang smiled and said, if I die, you will be the leader. As he spoke, he clenched his right fist, and 3 brilliant halos gradually appeared on his wrist. Every time a warrior from Xinjiang continent opens a meridian, when he bursts out spiritual power, a halo will condense on his wrist. Haha. He just opened 3 meridians. This Strongest Sect's leader is really a loser. I don't know where he got the courage to face us who have opened the 4th level of meridians. The disciples of Lincoln Sect laughed. In their opinion, a sect leader, even if he is only a 9th-rate person, must at least be at the level of martial artist. A leader who has opened the 3rd level of meridians? It's simply a big joke. Jun Chang smiled and narrowed his eyes, saying, opening the 3rd level of meridians is enough to deal with you. Really? The 3 disciples burst out spiritual energy together, and 4 halos appeared on their wrists. TSK. It turns out that they all have opened the 4th level of meridians. No wonder they came here arrogantly and made trouble for me. Kid. Senior brother Lee grinned and said, if you kneel down and beg for mercy, our Lincoln Sect can still give you, the leader, a face and pretend that nothing happened. Ding. Side quest triggered. Hearing the system prompt, Jun Changxiao was stunned. Pulling open the sect panel that only he could see, he saw that under the main quest, there was a side quest out of thin air. The content was to deal with 0 quarters provocative Lincoln Sect disciples. Oh my god. There are also side quests. The system said, side quests require specific conditions to be triggered. If the host completes it, he can get a certain amount of sect contribution points. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up immediately. If you want to develop your sect, you must become strong. The strength depends on the goods in the sect mall, which require contribution points to exchange. Since there is a task, and it can reward contribution points, you must do it. Jun Changxiao said coldly, kneel down. You are probably out of your mind. Swish. As soon as the voice fell, his right hand turned into a fist and slammed over. This move was fast and fierce. Luke Qian thought with interest, my sect leader doesn't look weak. You're looking for death. Senior brother Lee shouted coldly, raising his fist to meet him. Bang. The 2 fists collided, and a weak wave rippled in the air. This was caused by the collision of spiritual energy. In Jun Changxiao's memory, a higher level warrior can shatter space by using spiritual energy to fight. Thump, thump, thump. Senior Brotherly retreated several steps, and when he stabilized his body, his right fist suddenly swelled up. Damn it, he said angrily and puzzledly. How can a person with 3 meridians open have such strong power? Swish. Jun Changxiao stepped forward, because I'm the sect leader. Bang. Thump, thump, thump. Senior Brotherly retreated again, sat on the ground, and felt pain in his chest from the attack, and his face suddenly became hideous. Ding. Destroy 1/4 of the Lincoln Sect disciples who challenged you. Looking at the changes in the side quest data, Jun Changxiao was stunned and said, is this the first one completed? Damn it. Although Senior Brotherly lost his fighting power, after being hit by a punch, he resisted the pain and roared, go, go, go. Swish. Swish. The 3 Lincoln Sect disciples immediately attacked together. Jun Changxiao said indifferently, using more to fight less. Shameless. Humph. It is the greatest shame for a rubbish to be the leader. The 3 Lincoln Sect disciples were determined to use more to fight less, and had no intention of stopping. Okay. Jun Changxiao said coldly, since you are so shameless, don't blame me for being ruthless today. As he spoke, a wave of air surged around him, and the halo on his wrist instantly turned into 5. Open the meridians in 5 stages. How? How is it possible? The 3 Lincoln Sect disciples widened their eyes. After seeing the 5 halos on Jun Changxiao's wrist, Liu Kai and Qian's beautiful eyes showed surprise. After joining the Strongest Sect, she always believed that the highest level of the sect leader was only the 2nd stage, and it was already surprising that he had reached the 3rd stage. Now it was even more incredible that he had reached the 5th stage. The original Jun Changxiao was only at the 2nd stage of Kame. But Jun Changxiao, who had traveled through time and space, relied on the talisman of experience to easily break through to the 5th stage of Kame. This level of cultivation was nothing in the Xinjiang continent, but it was still capable of dealing with the 4th stage of Kame. Swish. Jun Changxiao stepped forward. His right fist, which was infused with spiritual power, swung suddenly, and directly knocked a dazed Lincoln Sect disciple away. Ding. Deal with 2/4 of the Lincoln Sect disciples who challenged you. A bunch of trash. You dare to be arrogant in front of me. You don't know how to live or die. Jun Changxiao swung his fist again, and knocked another Lincoln Sect disciple away. Ding. Deal with 3/4 of the Lincoln Sect disciples who challenged you. Jun Changxiao, who relied on the experience spell to open up the 5 meridians, bullied these Lincoln Sect disciples who had opened up the 4th meridian. It was really easy. Seeing his companions being knocked away one after another, another Lincoln Sect disciple was frightened and hurriedly retreated. You can't run away. Jun Changxiao strode over and punched him. Bang. The last Lincoln Sect disciple was knocked away, and then fell to the ground listlessly. Ding. 4/4 of the Lincoln Sect disciples who challenged you have been dealt with. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and obtaining 4 points of sect contribution. Ding. Sect contribution. 400ths. Jun Changxiao opened the sect attribute panel and saw that the sect contribution had changed from 0 to 4 points. A bright smile suddenly appeared on his lips. Although the reward was small, it was better than nothing. Pa. Jun Changxiao clapped his hands and said, get out of here now. The mountains remain unchanged. The waters flow forever. We'll see you later. Senior Brotherly got up with difficulty, and after saying a few words, he fled with 3 disciples in a panic. 4 senior brothers, wait for me. The green turban warrior chased after him in panic. This buddy probably didn't expect that the senior brother he had found would be easily dealt with by that guy. A conflict ended after Jun Changxiao burst out with his true strength, and when he completed the side quest and obtained 4 points of contribution, it was also a windfall. Liu Kai and Qian said, we should kill them to prevent future troubles. Jun Changxiao said speechlessly, there's no need to be so cruel, right? As a person from Earth who has received higher education, he really didn't have the urge to kill people just because of a little holiday. Liu Kai and Qian said lightly, in the Xinjiang continent where the strong prey on the weak, being kind to the enemy is the greatest cruelty. If you don't even know this, you are not qualified to be the head of the sect. Jun Changxiao was silent. Yes. He is no longer an earthling, but a person from the Xinjiang continent. Here, martial arts are respected, and the weak are preyed on. Being kind to the enemy is cruel to yourself. Ding. While thinking, a voice sounded in his ears. Side quest triggered. Triggered the quest again. Jun Changxiao hurriedly pulled out the sect panel. He saw that the side quest presented on the panel was to educate Liu Kai and Qian with great principles and maintain the dignity of the head of the sect. What kind of a quest is this? Jun Changxiao was a little confused. But he soon understood something and thought to himself, Liu Kai and Qian is a disciple. If I let her teach me, where is the dignity of the head of the sect? Chapter 5 Severely Injured Person. Although the Strongest Sect has only 9 streams and only 2 people, Jun Changxiao is the leader of the sect after all. If the disciples dare to preach in front of him, what dignity can he have as the leader? No. He must establish his dignity and let this woman know that he is the leader of the Strongest Sect and her immediate superior. Ahem. Jun Changxiao moistened his throat, put his hands behind his back, and said solemnly, Kai and Qian, what you said just now is right. You can't be kind to your enemies. But remember, we martial artists cultivate the Tao and the heart. If you bully others and take advantage of the weak, you are no different from a local bully. What's more, a few trash disciples pose no threat to me. If I kill them, it will definitely damage the prestige of the sect. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and gaining 1 point of sect contribution value. Ding. Sect contribution value. 500ths. Just completed it? Jun Changxiao was confused. He thought that he would be successful only if Liu Kai and Qian was convinced. In fact, this side quest did not have any hard requirements. As long as Jun Changxiao expressed his attitude and showed the dignity that the head of the sect should have, it would be completed. Whether Liu Kai and Qian listened or not was her own business. From the look in her eyes, when she looked at Jun Changxiao, as if she was looking at an idiot, she knew that this woman did not listen at all. I understand. Liu Kai and Qian said, killing these trash is insulting to the prestige of the head of the sect. Let the disciples do it on their behalf. Clang. The long sword was unsheathed, and the cold air spread. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, Kai and Qian, why don't you understand? What I mean is, hey, don't go. Liu Kai and Qian, you are a woman. Women should act like women, not just fighting and killing. Liu Kai and Qian stopped. Her beautiful eyes were cold and she said, who said that women can't fight and kill? She is very beautiful. From Jun Changxiao's current perspective, there is no flaw. But the coldness and murderous intent in her eyes made him feel certain, and he secretly said, this is definitely a woman with a story. Liu Kai and Qian joined the Strongest Sect, and Jun Changxiao knew nothing about her identity. He had thought about whether to find an opportunity to ask her, but after a brief contact, he found that she was cold all day long, so he gave up the idea. Women with cold personalities are not easy to get along with, so it is better not to provoke them. Kai and Qian. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, put away the sword first. Clang. Liu Kai and Qian put away the sword and said lightly, you are the head of the sect, I obey you, but remember, don't have any contempt for women. Contempt. Jun Changxiao was speechless. I don't let you fight and kill because I'm worried that you will encounter danger. Jun Changxiao felt that he was not dignified as the head of the sect because he did not see any respect and, or in the eyes of the only female disciple. How can I make her respect me more? Jun Changxiao thought about it all the way, but couldn't think of any good solution. He simply stopped thinking about it, opened the attribute panel, looked at the 5 contribution points, and thought to himself, can I exchange something in the mall? He skipped the novice mall and directly clicked on the beginner mall, and a dazzling array of items appeared in front of him. Fireball Talisman, requires 10 contribution points. Ice Cone Talisman, requires 10 contribution points. First Great Cold Edge Sword, requires 10 contribution points. Ninefold Collapse Fist, requires 10 contribution points. Jun Changxiao, who only has 5 contribution points, scanned the items that require 10 contribution points to exchange one by one, and was immediately discouraged. No cheap ones. Number 1 contribution point exchange? Yes. Jun Changxiao continued to look down and found that in the last grid there was an item that only required 1 contribution point to exchange, called first grade healing pill. He was not injured, so it was useless to exchange this thing. PFFT, PFFT. Even if it's free, it can't be exchanged. Except for the first grade healing pills. All the items in the primary mall require 10 contribution points, which made Jun Changxiao reluctantly collect them. Oh. I can only go to Qingyang City and recruit disciples to increase my contribution points. Lu Qian, who was walking in front, stopped, her jade hand lightly placed on the hilt of the sword, and her willow eyebrows slightly frowned and said, Someone. Jun Changxiao looked hurriedly and found that this place was an official road. There were no human figures on both sides, except trees and rocks. He didn't think that Lu Qian would joke with him, so he said, Where is the person? Lu Qian didn't say anything and kept staring at the bushes on the roadside. Jun Changxiao followed her gaze and saw the bushes tremble slightly, as if there was something in it, so he said vigilantly, Could it be a beast? There are not only humans in the Xinjiang continent, but also beasts. Although they don't practice martial arts, they are very powerful. For example, on the way here, Jun Changxiao encountered a beast comparable to a martial artist in a mountain forest, where few people have ever been. That physique, that strength. It smashed rocks and trees with one punch like a game. After seeing the strength of the beasts from another world, sect leader Jun decisively chose to detour, saying that the forest ahead was full of feces and urine, and it was not suitable to walk. It's not a beast. Lu Qian said, It's a human. Human? Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it's not a beast that can smash mountains and trees, there's nothing to worry about. Sect leader Jun walked over with a swagger, and when he pushed aside the bushes, he saw a warrior lying on the ground covered in blood. Not only a human, but also a seriously injured person. Lu Qian also walked over and said, He is seriously injured. As she spoke, she loosened her hand from the hilt of the sword, looked up at the sky, and said, It's getting dark, let's hurry up and get on the road. Jun Changxiao blurted out, Are you not going to save him? Lu Qian looked at him, as if he were a fool and said, Are you still planning to save him? Jun Changxiao said, Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Lu Qian said calmly, Who knows if he is being hunted by his enemies? If you save him, you might bring big trouble to yourself and your sect. Even though he had traveled through time, Jun Changxiao understood this truth. He squatted down, lifted half of the blood-stained clothes of the injured man, and said, Do you think the wound on his back was caused by human beings? Lu Qian shook her head and said, It was claw marks. Jun Changxiao said, So it was a ferocious beast that injured him, not an enemy. Lu Qian agreed and said lightly, This person is seriously injured and may die at any time. How can you save him if you don't know medicine? Although I don't know medicine. Jun Changxiao gently spread his palm and said with a smile, But there is a healing pill. Lu Qian glanced at the peanut-sized pill in his palm and said lightly, From the color of this pill, it is nothing more than an ordinary golden wound medicine. Can it cure a seriously injured person? Whether it works or not, you will know after trying it. Jun Changxiao turned the injured man over, opened his mouth, threw the pill in, and slightly circulated his spiritual energy to drive it into his body. Lu Qian said nothing. This person not only has external injuries, but also internal injuries, which cannot be cured by ordinary healing pills. Ahem. Suddenly, the injured man who had fallen into a coma coughed twice, his tightly closed eyelids trembled a few times, and then opened with difficulty. Awakened? Surprise appeared in Lu Qian's beautiful eyes. Jun Changxiao grinned and said, The effect of my healing pill seems to be quite good. Chapter 6 Follow the rules of this world. Where did the pill come from? Of course, it was exchanged from the primary mall in the sect system. Jun Changxiao was not optimistic about this kind of healing pill that can be exchanged for only 1 contribution point at first. After all, the man was too seriously injured and was dying unexpectedly. After taking it for a while, the seriously injured and unconscious person opened his eyes. Lu Qian was also very surprised. Ordinary wound medicine does not have such a strong effect. What's more amazing is that the claw marks on the back of the injured person healed quickly and formed scars quickly. How is it possible? Liu Kai and Qian couldn't believe it and even doubted whether what she saw was real. It was very real. Because in about a moment, the man's injuries healed and jumped up from the ground. A seriously injured, unconscious, and dying person took the pill and jumped up in a short time. How incredible. I'm rich. I'm rich. Jun Changxiao's eyes became hot. The first grade healing pill exchanged for 1 contribution point has such a strong healing effect. It can be sold. In the martial arts world, people often get seriously injured, not to mention sprained ankles and broken tendons. The first grade healing pill has a powerful effect and is absolutely worth a fortune. Exchange all the remaining ones and find a way to sell them at a high price. If you have the money to expand the territory of the sect and decorate it well, you are afraid that you can't recruit disciples? Jun Changxiao became more and more excited as he thought about it. He hurriedly pulled out the system panel and prepared to exchange the remaining 4 contribution points for the first grade healing pill. Sect Mall, click it. Primary Mall, click it. Scroll down all the way until you reach the end and you will see that the first grade healing pill is grayish and a line of small words appears below which reads limited to purchase once a month. Plop. Jun Changxiao sat on the ground with a plop, howling in his heart. Damn it, there is still a purchase limit. Seeing this, Liu Kai and Qian secretly said, what's wrong with him? After witnessing the effect of the first grade healing pill, Jun Changxiao began to plan his future beautiful life. But the words monthly purchase limit seemed to turn into a fine needle, piercing the balloon that helped him fly to the sky, and he fell from a high altitude in an instant, and it was so painful. Yes, Jun Changxiao said secretly, the main task is already very difficult. The system will not leave me such an obvious bug. Hey. He sighed and tried to stand up, but found that the injured person was gone. So he said in astonishment, Kai and Qian, where is that person? Gone. Jun Changxiao almost fell to the ground again. This seat spent 1 precious contribution point in exchange for that guy's injury recovery, and he left without saying thank you. Isn't this too fucked up? Liu Kai and Qian said calmly, Master, I advise you to be a bad guy. Being a good person in Xinjiang continent often leads to a bad ending. Jun Changxiao knew that this woman was teasing him on purpose, and he got angry and said, I don't believe that there is no conscience in this world. Conscience? Liu Kai and Qian's beautiful eyes were filled with murderous intent, and she gritted her teeth and said, some people's consciences have long been eaten by dogs. Jun Changxiao shuddered. Liu Kai and Qian also had murderous intent just now, but the murderous intent she exuded now was extremely terrifying. The story behind this woman must be complicated. And those people she mentioned, are they just making a map of the people, or are they referring to a single person? Jun Changxiao's purpose of being a good person and doing good deeds is actually to save the injured and then pull them into his own Iron Bone Sect. As a result, she disappeared without even saying thank you. Jun Changxiao was helpless, and at the same time he understood that, if you want to do good deeds and charity in this world, you are definitely a super idiot. There are legal constraints on Earth, but not here. There are moral shackles on Earth, but there are none here. Jun Changxiao looked up at the sky, his eyes firm, and he said, since I have come to the Starfall continent, from today on, I will naturally follow the rules of this world. What rules? 4 simple words. The strong are respected, not to be bullied, have power and financial resources, have 3 wives and 4 concubines, and be worshipped by all living beings? Sure. First of all, you have to become a strong man who shakes the world. Ding. Congratulations to the host for initially understanding the laws of the Starfall continent, completing the hidden tasks, and rewarding 10 contribution points. Ding. School contribution value. 1400s. Jun Changxiao said in a daze. Are there any hidden tasks? Yes. A voice came from the system. The tasks of the Strongest Sect system are divided into main tasks, side tasks, and hidden tasks. The hidden tasks are hidden in the panel, and the host must complete them by chance. Jun Changxiao was speechless. The side tasks need to be triggered. At least you can see the details of the tasks. The hidden tasks are hidden and completed by chance. This setting is really fucked up. Of course. The system added, there is also a fourth type of task, called the epic task. Epic quest. Jun Changxiao pricked up his ears. The system explained, when the host reaches a certain level, the epic quest will be triggered. After completing it, you can get very generous rewards. How generous? Jun Changxiao asked with a fiery look. The system said, the rewards obtained from the epic quest will be determined by the host's completion and realm. Jun Changxiao said, you mean the better the completion and the higher the realm, the more generous the rewards? That's right. When can I trigger the epic quest? Sorry, the host needs to explore the epic quest on his own. The system will not give too many prompts, to avoid disrupting the balance. TSK. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes, happily pulled out the attribute panel, and clicked on the sect mall. He completed a hidden quest in a confused and inexplicable way, and got 10 contribution points. He must find a way to spend it. What should I choose? Looking at the rows of goods, Jun Changxiao hesitated. He thought the items inside were all good, and wanted to exchange them. Master, Iron Qian, who was walking in front, said coldly, we are almost at Qingyang City. Jun Changxiao took back the data panel, and then he found that there was a city at the end of the vision ahead. From a distance, it looked like a lion lying between heaven and earth. He shook his head and said, is this Qingyang City, the largest city in Qingyang County? It's not as grand as I imagined. When Jun Changxiao walked all the way, and finally stood in front of the city gate, he looked up at the city wall, that was dozens of meters high, and said in amazement, it's so high. Seeing his expression, passers-by cast contemptuous eyes. Some people even whispered, even if this guy has never seen Qingyang City, he should have heard of it, right? That girl is pretty. Is she with him? Iron Qian frowned slightly, and instinctively took a few steps back, keeping a certain distance from the master, as if telling passers-by, I don't know this guy. Jun Changxiao retracted his shocked eyes and grinned, in the future, I will definitely build the Iron Bone Sect to be more magnificent than Qingyang City. Iron Bone Sect? Someone whispered, is this person a disciple of the Tegu sect of Qingyang village? Wrong. Jun Changxiao turned around, put his hands on his waist and said, I'm not a disciple of the Tegu sect, I'm the second leader of the Tegu sect. There was a brief silence in front of the city gate, and then there was a burst of laughter. Haha. Is this guy the leader? Don't be ridiculous. Although the Tegu sect exists in name only, it's not like a young guy can become the leader casually. Hahaha. No, I'm laughing so hard that tears are coming out. Chapter 7 You can bite me or go away. Have you heard that the Tegu sect, whose leader was arrested by the authorities for visiting brothels, and whose escape attempt failed and was beheaded, is participating in this year's recruitment of 100 sects? Really? This sect still exists? A young man with a problem in his brain claims to be the second leader of the Tegu sect. I guess his highest realm is only the second or third stage of opening meridians. If a second stage Kame leader has the nerve to inherit the position of leader, shouldn't we, who are 3 or 4 stages, occupy the mountain and establish a sect? Jun Changxiao stood in front of the city gate and said flirtatious words in a middle school manner, which immediately caused heated discussions in Qingyang City. Of course, it was only a laughing stock. In the past, the Tegu Zheng sect had a little prestige under the development of leader Wang, but now that people have left, it's good enough to be remembered by everyone. Walking on the streets of Qingyang City, Jun Changxiao was very sad when he heard their discussions and saw the contemptuous looks they cast. Although he was the leader of a sect, his treatment was no different from that of the protagonist who traveled through time and space to a useless person and was ridiculed by others. No. After crossing over, he opened the golden finger and embarked on the peak road of beating geniuses, stepping on gods and demons, and marrying a rich and beautiful woman. What about me? Although there is a system, he also tied a bomb, fearing that his death would not be miserable enough and not fancy enough. Iron Qian said, Master, do you want to find a crack in the ground to crawl into now? This woman. Can't you comfort my injured heart? Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, don't worry, I haven't experienced any storms, so why would I care about other people's private criticism? Storms. Liu Kai and Qian whispered, I'm afraid I haven't left Qingyang village since I was a child. Haha. I died once, isn't it enough? Jun Changxiao didn't bother to pay attention to this cold and poisonous woman, and walked towards the west of the city, where the recruitment of the 100 sects was held. On the way, many people pointed and talked behind his back. Ignoring their discussions, Jun Changxiao held his head high and strode away. This guy has an advantage. As a time traveler, he has an extraordinary face. If it were the original Jun Changxiao, or a warrior who cares about his self-esteem, he would be so angry that he would spit blood on the spot if he was ridiculed by others. Liu Kai and Qian followed behind, watching the head of the sect face the ridicule of passers-by with a calm face, and thought to herself, can you tolerate this? You have to endure it even if you can't. Because in Jun Changxiao's view, only strength can make them shut up their mouths of ridicule. Wait. Sooner or later, I will make you look at the Iron Bone Sect with admiration and awe. The main task given by the system forced Jun Changxiao to complete it, and after being ridiculed by passers-by, he must complete it. There is an essential difference between being passive before and active now. Qingyang City is very big. The west of the city is also the place where the recruitment of 100 sects has been held in the past, and the scale is also quite good. Jun Changxiao walked over with Liu Kai and Qian, and saw that many tents were temporarily built on the martial arts field, with vigorous and powerful sect banners hanging. Dadaoman, Jinlang Gang, Eilit Shamshei, Tiger or Sect. The names of various sects are dazzling. Some boys and girls who arrived earlier, accompanied by their parents or relatives and friends, asked about the situation of each sect in detail. The general content is, how is this sect? How many members are there? What level of martial arts skills are practiced? If you practice here, how high can you achieve in the future? After listening for a while, Jun Changxiao shook his head and said secretly, how can this be a recruitment for the 100 sects? It's simply a job fair. Master. Liu Kai and Qian whispered, we have to find an open space and build a facade like them, so that we can meet the recruitment requirements and attract other people's attention. Since we are here, we must adapt to the local customs. Jun Changxiao looked around, and pointed to the empty space in the distance and said, this is a good place. Liu Kai and Qian looked in the direction and frowned slightly, saying, the Dadao sect on the left is an 8th-rate sect, and the Huxiao sect on the right is also an 8th-rate sect. Are you sure you want to build a front door between them? Jun Changxiao said, since the two sects are 8th rate, they will definitely attract a lot of attention when the recruitment starts. We can get some attention by being sandwiched in the middle. Liu Kai and Qian thought for a while and said, that makes sense. Let's go. Jun Changxiao said, let's build a front door. He took Liu Kai and Qian to the gap between the two 8th-rate sects, skillfully took out the cloth strips, and built a simple small tent in no time. This kind of recruitment held every year for hundreds of sects is nothing more than building a place to shelter from the wind and rain. Only the sects that are showy and powerful will build it very luxuriously. For example, the Dadao sect on the left and the Huxiao sect on the right. The two sects are also quite powerful, and the front doors they built are so luxurious and generous. Compared with others, the simple tent built by sect master Jun was instantly crushed into rubbish. Of course. This is what he needs. With two luxurious fronts on the left and right, his simple nest can easily attract the attention of others. Someone eats and drinks for free. Jun Changxiao's behavior is called freeloading, the light of glory. After the leader of the Longsword sect finished talking with a teenager, he saw a tent suddenly appeared next to him and shouted, which sect is so blind that it dares to set up its front in front of my Longsword sect? The people of the Tiger Or sect also found it. A disciple rolled up his sleeves and walked out, saying fiercely, damn it, you dare to set up camp next to my Tiger Or sect, are you so bold? Coincidentally, Jun Changxiao had just hung up the sect banner. After seeing the 5 words Iron Bone Sect written on it, the two people showed deep contempt on their faces. Bah. The disciple of Tiger Or sect spat and said, a sect that was arrested for visiting a brothel is building a front next to my Tiger Or sect. It's a great shame. Hey. The steward of the Long Knife sect pointed at Jun Changxiao and said impatiently, this is my Long Knife sect's territory. Go and build it over there. The two sects didn't take the Tiguzheng sect seriously at all. After all, it was only a 9th rate sect, one level lower than their 8th rate sect. Lu Qian said indifferently, the venue for the recruitment of the 100 sects has always been provided by the Lord of Qingyang City. When did it become the territory of your small 8th rate sects? Jun Changxiao was speechless. The 8th rate sects were just small under her poisonous tongue. Her own sect was only 9th rate, so it must be even more unbearable to look at. Hearing the word small 8th rate, the steward of the Long Knife sect was furious, but he was speechless. That's right. The venue was provided by the Lord of Qingyang City, let alone the 8th rate sects. Even the 7th rate sects dare not say that they are their own turf. The disciples of the Tiger Or sect were also very angry, because the small 8th rate that Lu Qian mentioned included their own sect. Jun Changxiao walked out and said, the recruitment of the 100 sects is about to begin. We are all from the 100 sects, so we should be harmonious and there is no need to get angry. If Sect Master Wang was still here, Li would regard the Iron Bone Sect as a member of the 100 sects, but now, the deacon of the Long Knife sect looked down on him and said, it doesn't even count as a fart. That's right. The disciples of the Tiger Or sect raised their eyebrows and said, a sect whose disciples have all had a farewell dinner should have been disbanded long ago. Why are they coming to Qingyang City to join in the fun? Jun Changxiao's face changed again and again. He could tolerate the ridicule of passers-by. After all, vulgar people like to follow the trend, but he couldn't stand being humiliated and ridiculed by two sects. You too. He touched his nose and smiled. I will build my front door here today. If you don't like it, you can come and bite me, or you can pack up your tent and get out of here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Contempt of the Factions. The sect was very weak, and Jun Changxiao set himself the principle of low-key development and not causing trouble. After arriving in Qingyang City, he did not cause any trouble, but trouble came to him. Especially when he heard two disciples from the 8th rate sect speak rudely. Jun Changxiao could not bear it, so he launched a verbal attack. Oh, go. The disciples of the Tiger Or sect were immediately unhappy and said, you dare to make my Tiger Or sect get out? Are you tired of living? Swish, swish. Several disciples of the Tiger Or sect who were resting rushed out from their own gates. People from the Long Sword sect also came out. These disciples of the sects not only have the strength of opening the meridians for 4 or 5 stages, but also have well-developed muscles. Our great leader Jun is thin, and surrounded by them with fierce eyebrows and high eyes. He looks quite weak and vulnerable. What's the situation? Are the Tiger Or sect and the Long Sword sect going to fight? Warriors from various nearby sects gathered around. When they saw Jun Changxiao, they realized that it was not a fight between the sects, but they were targeting the same person. Huh? Someone asked in surprise, isn't he the guy at the city gate who claimed to be the second leader of the Iron Bone Sect? The disciples of the Long Knife Sect and the Tiger Or Sect were startled and said, is this guy the leader of the Iron Bone Sect? Seeing the expressions on their faces, Jun Changxiao wanted to shout loudly, I'm the leader. What's the problem? There is a problem. The strength is too weak and the person is too immature. This is at most an entry-level disciple. The deacon of the Long Knife Sect cupped his hands and said jokingly, so you are the second leader of the Iron Bone Sect. I'm sorry. The disciple of the Tiger Or Sect grinned and said, it's terrible to offend a leader by accident. It's terrible. The tense atmosphere weakened a lot under the teasing and sarcasm of the two. In fact, even if they were given 10 courage, they would not dare to take action in Qingyang City. After all, the city lord has a clear rule prohibiting private fighting. Jun Changxiao said calmly, you are all gathered in front of my sect. Do you still want to recruit disciples? Haha. The disciples of the Tiger Or Sect laughed. A sect without Sect Master Wang still wants to recruit disciples. What a joke. You can't say that. The deacon of the Long Knife Sect suppressed his laughter and said, maybe some blind young men will join the Iron Bone Sect. The disciples of the Tiger Or Sect looked at everyone, and the sarcasm on their lips became stronger. They said, these days, it's easy to find lame young men, but it's hard to find blind young men. The two sang in unison, making the onlookers laugh. The prestige of the Iron Bone Sect plummeted after Sect Master Wang's accident. Anyone who joins such a sect is absolutely blind. Jun Changxiao sighed. Surrounded by many muscular men, he returned to his own sect. Lu Qian whispered, Sect Master, should I cut a crack in the ground for you to get in? Jun Changxiao, who was fine at first, rolled his eyelids when he heard this. Because they were in Qingyang City, the two 8th-rate sects did not dare to teach the leader of the Tegu sect a lesson, so after mocking and ridiculing them, they let the other party sandwich their sects between them. The onlookers also dispersed, but returned to their own sects, discussing the Tegu sect one after another, with contempt and disdain in their words. Jun Changxiao pretended not to hear anything, and dozed off on a chair. Master, Lu Qian said, you have a really broad mind. Jun Changxiao said, when you are alive, you should have a broad mind. If you think too much, and care too much, you will be very tired of living. Lu Qian thought it made sense, but, she asked, when the recruitment of 100 sects begins, how sure are you that you can recruit disciples? Jun Changxiao smiled confidently and said, 100% sure. TSK. Because the sects were close to each other, the people from the Changdao sect and the Huxiao sect heard it and sneered. The leader of the Tegu sect has a low level of cultivation, is not very old, and is quite good at talking nonsense. Deacon Sun, a disciple of the Tiger sect, came out and shouted, we have nothing to do anyway, why don't we make a bet? Oh. The steward of the Long Knife sect said with a smile, what's the bet? The disciple of the Tiger sect looked at the Iron Bone Sect intentionally or unintentionally and said, let's bet on how many people will come to this rubbish sect for consultation when the recruitment of the 100 sects begins. The rubbish sect must be the Iron Bone Sect. That's interesting. The steward of the Long Knife sect said with a smile, why not make a bet? The disciple of the Tiger sect said loudly, I bet that no one will come to consult on the day the recruitment starts. The bet is 1 or 2 ounces. The steward of the Long Knife sect said with a smile, it's a member of the 100 sects after all. No matter how rubbish it is, there should be a blind young man who comes to consult. I bet that one person will consult on the day of recruitment. The bet is 1 or 2 ounces. 1 or 2 taels of silver is not much. The two did not intend to gamble, but to ridicule the Tegu sect. There was nothing they could do. Who asked Jun Changxiao to build his front door between two 8th-rate sects? He could borrow the light, but he would definitely have to pay a price. Perhaps they were too bored. After hearing the bet between the Long Blade sect and the Tiger sect, the warriors from various sects started to discuss. Given the current situation of the Iron Bone sect, no one will be interested on the day of recruitment. Besides, it's rumored in the city that young men and women with ambitions would never join such a rubbish sect. It's strange. Why is that good-looking girl always standing in front of the Iron Bone sect? Could she be a disciple? No way. Such a rubbish sect can recruit such a beautiful female disciple. The warriors from various sects chatted, and their eyes fell on Lu Qian. It has to be said. Wherever a beautiful woman goes, she is a beautiful scenery. Qian. Jun Chang smiled and said, come, give me a shoulder massage. Lu Qian frowned slightly. Jun Chang smiled and said in a low voice, there are so many people watching, give me some face. The sect master, Lu Qian walked over, raised her hand lightly, and started to pound regularly. This force control is no different from hitting a sandbag. Although Master Jun is in pain and collapse, he shows a very enjoyable look in front of everyone. Oh my god. You are really a disciple of the Iron Bone Sect. Where is justice? Seeing Lu Qian giving Jun Changxiao a shoulder massage, the martial artists of various sects not only looked surprised, but also deeply envious. 3 days later, the recruitment of hundreds of sects began. Jun Changxiao sat on a chair with his shoulders drooping, quietly waiting for the boys and girls to rush into the martial arts arena. Lu Qian said, Master, do you need a shoulder massage? No. Jun Changxiao hurriedly said, I still want to live 2 more years. Because the recruitment has begun, each sect is busy preparing, and no one cares about or laughs at the Iron Bone Sect. During these days of waiting, Jun Changxiao learned a lot of news from various sects, such as which village and township has a good boy to participate in the recruitment. Although boys and girls can freely choose a sect to join, the sect also needs to verify the other party's qualifications to determine whether they are qualified. For example, the advanced 8th rate sects have certain qualification requirements for recruiting disciples, while the 9th rate sects are more casual, and anyone with a little qualification can join. In this recruitment of 100 sects, the most popular one that all sects are vying to attract is Li Qingyang, the direct descendant of the Li family in Qingyang City. It is said that when he was 15 years old, this boy was verified to have a top-grade spiritual root. If such a genius can be accepted as a disciple, there will definitely be only benefits, no harm. Jun Changxiao was talking to himself, and suddenly he realized that the surroundings had become quiet. He instinctively looked up and saw that the disciples of the two 8th rate sects were staring at him in astonishment. Haha. Li Qingyang is a rare genius in Qingyang City in 100 years. Many major sects are vying for him. This guy actually wants to recruit him. There must be something wrong with his brain. It's good to be young. You dare to think of anything. Everyone laughed. Jun Changxiao was speechless. He felt that if he said something unintentionally, it would be magnified by them. Did he travel through time and add all his attribute points to the hatred value? Master, Lu Qian whispered, stop daydreaming. These words were like a knife, stabbing Jun Changxiao's heart. He collapsed on the chair and howled secretly, can I still be the master? Chapter 9, Qingyang City's first genius. The recruitment of hundreds of sects has begun. The martial arts arena, which originally only had martial artists from different sects, has welcomed a sea of young men and women in a short period of time. They have the dream of becoming martial artists and strong men, and actively ask about the situation of various sects. The young men who participate in the recruitment are definitely qualified. Choosing a suitable sect will affect their lives, so they must consider it carefully. Gradually, more and more people came. The faces of various sects in the martial arts arena were either gathered in groups of 3 or 5, or gathered densely, which seemed very lively. However, in sharp contrast, the face of the Tiguzheng sect, sandwiched between the Changdao sect and the Huxiao sect, has never been visited by anyone. Not even a fly has flown by. It is right to borrow the light. The passing young men and women will look over curiously. However, when they see the 5 words Tiguzheng sect, they quickly retreat, fearing that they will be stained with bad luck. These days, the Tigu sect was widely spread in Qingyang City. After hearing about it from various channels, the young men who participated in the recruitment would definitely not come to consult this sect that had no future and was destroying its own future. Ah. Jun Changxiao said helplessly, is my Tiguzheng sect so bad? Very bad. Lu Qian said bluntly. Jun Changxiao covered his chest and said weakly, Qian, can you not hit my fragile heart? Yes. Lu Qian said, Master, since no one is consulting, let's pack up and go back. Jun Changxiao was about to cry. This woman must have been sent by God to deliberately hit me. The people from the Changdao sect and the Huxiao sect boasted about their sects in front of the consulting teenagers. Occasionally, they glanced at them, and the disdain and sneer on their mouths became more and more intense. Boy, face the reality, right? The Tiguzheng sect has never been consulted by the teenagers. Compared with the lively sects nearby, it seems to be in 2 different worlds. Master, Lu Qian said, let's pack up and leave. No. Jun Changxiao continued to sit. He just didn't believe that among so many young men and women, there really wasn't a single blind person who came to consult. Li Qingyang from the Li family is here. Someone shouted so loudly that the disciples and senior leaders of various sects looked up. Just one sentence caused such a big stir. Jun Changxiao thought to himself, I want to see if this once-in-a-century genius is as handsome as me. Swish. He stepped out and stood in front of the door to look. Barely looking through the gap left by the crowd, he saw a man in white floating on the street leading to the martial arts arena. HMM. Jun Changxiao was startled and said, this man looks familiar. Lu Qian looked over and whispered, Master, he is the injured person who didn't even say thank you in the world before. After her reminder, combined with the blurred figure of the injured person, Jun Changxiao affirmed, yes, it's him. Li Qingyang, who has a top-grade spiritual root, came to the martial arts arena and immediately caused a huge sensation. The qualifications of warriors in the Xinjiang continent are distinguished by their spiritual roots, which are divided into low grade, ordinary, medium grade, high grade, extreme, holy and divine. The level of spiritual roots represents the strength of martial arts qualifications and the upper and lower limits of future cultivation. In a city like Qingyang City, a teenager who is over 16 years old and has a middle grade spiritual root is a rare existence. Half a year ago, Li Qingyang's martial arts test actually found a top grade spiritual root, and he immediately became the most shining existence, and was hailed as the first genius of Qingyang City. When the city lord congratulated him, he praised him in public. Li Qingyang is the future hope of our Qingyang City. If he practices diligently, it will not be a problem for him to become a martial king. Li Qingyang's sudden appearance caused quite a stir in the counties, so many sects from other counties also participated in this recruitment of 100 sects. Geniuses with outstanding spiritual roots are urgently needed by any sect. After Li Qingyang appeared, warriors from various sects swarmed around him and offered olive branches. Mr. Li, join Mighty Iron Sect, and you will be the eldest disciple. What's so good about being an eldest disciple? Mr. Li, join our Qingyang Sect, and you will be a high and mighty elder. Bah, you have at least 90 elders in your Qingyang Sect, and the number is almost catching up with the disciples. How dare you recruit Mr. Li? Mr. Li, join our Jujing gang and you can enjoy all the martial arts resources at will. Mr. Li, join my Ruai Fang and your senior and junior sisters will serve you all day long. In order to win over Li Qingyang, various sects tried their best. Unfortunately, Qingyang City's #1 genius chose to bypass them and walked on the martial arts field filled with gates. When recruiting from the 100 sects, he would definitely look for a sect to join, but in his mind, these 8th and 9th rate sects were not even considered. Mr. Li. At this moment, an old man came over and said with a smile, "Are you interested in joining my Kangshan sect?" Kangshan sect? The teenagers exclaimed. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, "Qian, is Kangshan sect very powerful?" Lu Qian nodded and said, "Kangshan sect is a 5th-rate sect in Qingyang County, with many disciples, and very strong strength and foundation." 5th rate. Jun Changxiao said in surprise, "It is quite powerful. The level of sects in the Xinjiang continent is the lowest 9th rate and the highest super 1st rate. The 5th rate Kangshan sect is a behemoth for Qingyang City. Moreover, only sects below the 5th rate can be called sects, and only those above the 5th rate are qualified to use the word sect. If the level of the Tiguzheng sect is also 5th rate, why worry about not being able to recruit disciples?" Jun Changxiao thought secretly. Lu Qian said, "This person has a top-grade spiritual root and is quite talented. Joining a 5th-rate sect is currently the best choice. In that case, there is no hope for me to recruit him." Jun Changxiao shook his head. Steward Sun from the Long Knife sect came over and said indifferently, "A genius like Mr. Li is wanted by the 5th-rate sects. Don't be delusional with your Tiguzheng sect." Steward Sunday, the disciple of the Tiger Or sect, smiled and said, "Don't forget, we still have a bet." Steward Sun joked, "It's been so long since the recruitment started, and no one in the Tigu sect has shown interest in it. It seems that I'm going to lose." Just as the two were teasing and laughing at Jun Changxiao, Li Qingyang made a decision and said, "Sorry, I'm not interested in joining the Kangshan sect." Oh my god. He rejected the invitation of the 5th-rate sect. Everyone widened their eyes. The direct descendants of the Li family, who have qualifications and spiritual roots, are just willful. The elders of Kangshan sect did not expect that Li Qingyang would refuse so decisively. They still did not give up and said, "Mr. Li, our Kangshan sect is one of the best sects in Qingyang County. Do you really not want to consider it?" "No." Li Qingyang walked away. Even Kangshan sect did not consider it, and the 7 or 8 sects that were originally prepared to approach and win overall gave up the idea. Li Qingyang continued to walk in the recruitment venue. His every move involved the hearts of various sects and young people. The highest level of the 100 Sects Alliance this time was the 5th rate. Since he looked down on it, which sect could accommodate this great Buddha? Soon, Li Qingyang walked to the front of the Longsword Sect. Steward Sun and the disciples of the Tiger Ore Sect hurriedly smiled flatteringly. It was impossible for such a genius to join their own sect, but it would be nice to get close to him and get a taste of the genius. Li Qingyang habitually glanced at the Changdao gate, then suddenly stopped. He first glanced at Jun Changxiao, then looked at the gate above, and said, "Are you the leader of the Strongest Sect?" The warriors from various sects around were collectively stunned. Since coming to the martial arts arena, the first genius of Qingyang City, who has always been taciturn, actually took the initiative to talk to the leader of this rubbish sect. Chapter 10 Ancient Sect. Li Qingyang is a first-class genius in the hearts of all sects, and his future achievements will at least start at the level of Martial King. As for the Tegu sect, it is a joke in the hearts of all sects. It may be disbanded tomorrow and become an insignificant grain of dust in history. The gap between the first genius and the trash sect is a world of difference. But no one expected that Li Qingyang would stop in front of the Tegu sect and take the initiative to speak. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Jun Changxiao, and they all secretly thought, what virtue and ability does this dishby head have to let a genius take the initiative to talk? The flattering smiles on the faces of the deacons of the Changdao sect and the disciples of the Huxiao sect have solidified. The first genius of Qingyang City has never looked at him from beginning to end, and now he is standing next to him and talking to the head of the trash gang. Is this a dream? Deacon Sun raised his hand and pinched his face hard and immediately felt pain. It's not a dream, it's real. Li Qingyang, who has a top-grade spiritual root and dares to refuse the 5th-rate sect, is really talking to the head of the Tegu sect. That's right. Jun Chang smiled and said, "I'm the leader of the Strongest Sect." Everyone sneered. How can a leader of a rubbish sect have the confidence to introduce himself in front of a genius without panic or haste? The same is true for Master Li. Aren't you afraid of losing your status as the #1 genius by taking the initiative to communicate with the other party in public? In the eyes of various sects, the Tegu sect is a piece of trash. Trash should exist in the trash can in the corner and should not be the focus of everyone's attention. To put it bluntly, this is jealousy. Why does the genius who is high above not talk to himself or others, but has to talk to a piece of trash? Li Qingyang bowed his hands and said with shame, "Before, in the wild, because I was in a hurry to go home, I left without even saying thank you. It was really rude. Please forgive me, leader." The warriors of various sects were dumbfounded again. The tone of the first genius of Qingyang City was obviously apologizing to that guy. Even Lu Kai and Qian next to him was surprised. It is hard to imagine that the most outstanding genius in a city would apologize to the headmaster. Or is he out of his mind in such an occasion? See, good intentions are rewarded. Jun Changxiao smiled brightly, and his previous irritability disappeared. He shrugged and said indifferently, "Mr. Li, it's just a small matter. If you didn't say it, I would have forgotten it." Lu Kai and Qian. She clearly remembered that the headmaster was still muttering in a low voice just now. It's unpleasant to see a guy with a top-grade spiritual root but no character. Li Qingyang smiled and said, "Can you explain the Iron Bone Sect to me?" What? The eyes of the warriors from various sects almost popped out. The first genius of Qingyang City actually wanted to learn about the Iron Bone Sect. Does he plan to join? The face of the disciples of the Tiger Ore Sect was extremely ugly at this moment. After all, they deliberately placed 1 or 2 bets to mock Jun Changxiao. What is the bet? Bet that when the recruitment of the 100 sects begins, no one will consult the Iron Bone Sect. What about now? Not only did someone come to consult, but it was also Li Qingyang, the #1 genius in Qingyang City. His face was slapped, and it really made a loud slapping sound. Ding. Side quest triggered. Just as everyone was shocked, Jun Changxiao heard a system prompt in his ear. He hurriedly opened the sect system panel and saw that the side quest was to explain the glorious history of the Strongest Sect and persuade the #1 genius in Qingyang City to join. Convincing Li Qingyang This task was acceptable to Jun Changxiao, but what the hell was explaining the glorious history of the Strongest Sect? A sect that was established not many years ago. A low-ranking sect with only one disciple. What glorious history? Or is it that the head of the sect, Wang, was arrested for visiting a brothel and then beheaded after failing to escape from prison, which is the most glorious history of the entire sect? This side quest is not reliable at all. Although Jun Changxiao was very upset, in order to complete the task and obtain contribution points, his brain began to work frantically. Although the Strongest Sect does not have a glorious history, you can make it up yourself. After racking his brains to think, Jun Changxiao said with a smile, Mr. Lee, in the eyes of the world, my Strongest Sect is nothing more than a low-ranking sect. Everyone snorted coldly. Since this guy knows himself, why did he join the recruitment of 100 sects with such a face? However, Jun Changxiao's face suddenly became serious, and he said, in fact, my Strongest Sect was once an ancient sect with a long history and profound heritage. Ancient sect? Haha, don't make fun of me. It's obviously a sect that was established casually, but he can be linked to ancient times. This guy has a problem with his brain. Warriors from various sects laughed mercilessly. Lukai and Qian, who was standing behind him, had a black line on her head. How thick-skinned and courageous does the leader need to be able to link the Strongest Sect to an ancient sect? Li Qingyang said with interest, can you explain it in detail? The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. Is the first genius of Qingyang City not normal, so he would listen to this guy's nonsense? Yes, yes. Who would refuse a fifth-rate sect and consult a second-rate sect? Mr. Li, Jun Chang smiled and said, have you heard of the East China Sea? Li Qingyang nodded and said, I have heard of it. There is a vast ocean to the east of Xinjiang continent, which is full of countless sea beasts. It is a very dangerous area. Jun Chang smiled and said, there is an Aole country at the end of the East China Sea. Have you heard of it, Mr. Li? Aole country? Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I have only heard of the East China Sea from books, and I have never been there, so I don't know that there is a country. Not only he didn't know, even the elders of Kangshan sect present had never heard of Aole country. Jun Chang smiled and said, there are two sacred mountains in Aole country, one is Huaguo Mountain, and the other is Tigu Mountain. Our Strongest Sect originated from Tigu Mountain. The first head of the sect was named Sun Wukong, and his immortal name was the Great Sage equaling heaven. This guy brought up journey to the west. Although it was awkward, the warriors of Xinjiang continent had never heard of it, and were stunned by his trick. Some even thought to themselves, is there really Aole country and Tigu Mountain in the East China Sea? What nonsense. At this moment, the elder of Kangshan sect came over and said, the East China Sea is extremely dangerous. Even a strong warrior like the martial emperor dare not go deep into it. The existing records have never mentioned Aole country, let alone Tigu Mountain. That's right, that's right. I have read a lot of books since I was a child and I'm familiar with astronomy and geography. I have never heard of Aole country and Tigu Mountain in the East China Sea. This guy is obviously making up a story. Damn, do you think we are 3-year-old children? Everyone felt insulted by their IQ and acted very angry. Old man, Jun Changxiao said lightly, I can only say that you know nothing about Xinjiang continent. Everyone's mouth twitched. A rookie at the level of opening meridians actually said that the elder of Kangshan sect knew nothing. Okay. The elder of Kangshan sect suppressed his anger and said coldly, I'm ignorant, but I would like to ask Master Jun, who is the Sun Wukong you mentioned, and who is his master? Making up a story? Then I will ask you in depth, and you will reveal your true colors. Chapter 11, Disciple Li Qingyang meets the master. Revealed? Not possible. Even if he hadn't read the original Journey to the West, Jun Changxiao, who had watched the TV series many times, could recite the stories by heart. He didn't even think about it and said, I'm the first leader of the Tigu sect. I absorbed the essence of the sun and moon of heaven and earth, and was nurtured for endless years. I broke through the divine stone, and was taught by the body patriarch of Lingtaifankan Mountain. The elder of the Kangshan sect angrily scolded, humans are flesh and blood. How can they come out of stones? You kid, don't talk nonsense and confuse the public. Old guy. Jun Changxiao said disdainfully, you also know nothing about the evolution of thousands of creatures. You. The elder of the Kangxian sect was so angry that his face turned red. Jun Changxiao said lightly, I have answered all your questions. If you are not satisfied or want to hear more, you can continue to ask. How could the elder of the Kangxian sect swallow this breath? He was about to continue asking questions, but Li Qingyang spoke first and said, I didn't expect that the Tegu sect has such a long history. Everyone almost fell down collectively. The direct descendants of the Li family would not really believe it, right? But Li Qingyang paused and said, what you said is just the once glorious Strongest Sect. What advantages does it have now? Yes. Even if it is not nonsense, even if the Tegu sect had a deep foundation in the past, it is now just a 9th-rate sect. Alas. Jun Changxiao sighed and said, there is no eternity in this world. No matter how strong the sect is, it will wither one day. Our Strongest Sect was not spared, and finally fell into what it is now. Fell into nothing. Your Tegu sect has never been strong at all. Okay. Mr. Li. Jun Changxiao looked over and said meaningfully, but my sect is an ancient sect after all. Even if it falls from the altar, it still has a foundation. For example, the pill you took before is the best proof. Pill. Everyone was confused when they heard it. Li Qingyang was silent. At that time, he was seriously injured and seemed to be unconscious, but he was conscious. He could vaguely remember that he took a pill and then his injuries healed. Jun Changxiao had made up a story before, and he just listened to it as a story, but when he mentioned that the elixir had benefited him, he had to think that the Strongest Sect might really be something extraordinary. Jun Changxiao said, I want to revive the former glory of the sect, and I need a genius like you to assist me. He looked at the warriors from various sects who had tried to win over Li Qingyang, and said, the conditions they promised you are difficult for me to meet, but if you want to become a martial emperor, join the Strongest Sect. Become a martial emperor. This guy really dares to say anything. Martial emperor. The strongest realm in the Xingyan continent, a god revered by the world. Only Jun Changxiao, who has opened his meridians for 5 stages, dares to let a person reach such a realm, which is really awesome. Okay. Li Qingyang said readily, I will join the Strongest Sect. These few simple words echoed over the martial arts arena, and the faces of the warriors from various sects suddenly froze, as if they had turned into wooden stone statues. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and gaining 5 contribution points. Ding. Sect's contribution value. 1900s. Hearing the voice ringing in his ears, Jun Changxiao was a little confused and thought to himself, it's done? Did you fool the first genius of Qingyang City? Qian Qian. After a moment of daze, the head of the Jun sect said loudly, bring the entry form. Lu Qian Qian put the form on the table. Swish. Jun Changxiao sat down casually and wrote, name, Li Qingyang. Gender, male. Age, 16 years old. Qualification, top grade spiritual roots. Realm, 10th stage of opening meridians. Jun Changxiao almost fell off the chair. He, the head of the sect, only has the 5th stage of opening meridians, and the second disciple he accepted has reached the 10th stage of opening meridians. As expected of the first genius of Qingyang City, he is really awesome. Jun Changxiao took out the seal of the headmaster from his space ring, exhaled, stamped it on the entry form and said, from today on, you will be a disciple of mighty Strongest Sect. Disciple Li Qingyang. Li Qingyang bowed and said respectfully, meet the headmaster. Ding. Sect member. 300ths. Ding. Sect contribution value. 2000ths. Seeing the members' promotion and contribution value increase again, Jun Changxiao suddenly felt that the system prompt sound was very beautiful. No one would have thought that Li Qingyang, who rejected the 5th-rate sect, would choose to join the Strongest Sect, and no one would have thought that he would go through the entry procedures in no time. The deacon of the Changdao sect slumped on the ground and said stupidly, impossible. Impossible. This must be a dream. The Tegu sect, which he always despised, actually recruited the first genius of Qingyang City. The reality was too cruel for him to accept. The disciples of the Huxio sect were also stunned. To be exact, when Li Qingyang joined the Strongest sect, everyone in the martial arts field was stunned, and they all felt like they were dreaming a ridiculous dream. Mr. Li, the elder of Kangshan sect, said in a deep voice, "You have a top-grade spiritual root, and your future achievements are unlimited. Joining the inferior Tegu sect is destroying your future, old man." Jun Changxiao said with a cold face, "Although my Tegu Zheng sect is inferior, it is only temporary. Today, I will say that within a few years, I will definitely surpass your Kangshan sect." The voice was sonorous and powerful, and it was awe-inspiring. This is serious, unprecedentedly serious, because as the head of a sect, he hates people who despise and laugh at his sect. He must become stronger and must slap them in the face with his actions. "Surpass my Kangshan sect?" The elder of Kangshan sect sneered. "Do you really think that you can make your sect stronger by just talking? Rely on your mouth. It is definitely impossible." Jun Changxiao dares to be so confident because he has a system in hand, contribution points, and a sect mall. Using Gaian continent warriors rely on time accumulation and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to practice. I will use contribution points and various treasures to surpass and beat you step by step, old man. Jun Chang smiled and said, "Wait for the day when our Tegu sect becomes famous and shakes the continent." The elder of Kangshan sect snorted coldly and said, "Okay, I will wait for the day when the Tegu sect becomes famous." After that, he left with a wave of his sleeves. The best talent was taken away, and there was no point in staying here, so he ordered his disciples to remove the door and prepare to return to Kangshan sect. Elder Ma. However, just as he was about to leave, a middle-aged man in brocade clothes came to the martial arts arena quickly and said, "Please stay. It's the head of the Li family." Everyone recognized that the person was the head of the Li family, Li Qingyang's father. The patriarch of the Li family came quickly with several servants and said politely with a bow, "Elder Ma, my son Qingyang is young and ignorant. Li will accept your sincere invitation on his behalf." Master Li, the elder of the Kangshan sect, said unhappily, "Your son has already joined other sects." What? The patriarch of the Li family was stunned. He looked at Li Qingyang in the distance and said with a sullen face, "You little bastard, why didn't you wait for your father to come and make a decision on your own?" His voice stopped abruptly, and his eyes swept over the banner of Iron Bone Sect hanging above his son's head. In an instant, a strong ominous sign arose in the patriarch of the Li family, Qingyang. "Which sect did you join?" Li Qingyang replied calmly, "Iron Bone Sect. Please collect and recommend." Chapter 12. He is really good at bragging. Hearing his son mention the Strongest Sect, the head of the Li family was struck by lightning, and the whole person was stunned and stuck in place. Half a year ago, Li Qingyang tested out the top-grade spiritual roots, which made him ecstatic. The Li family was also boiling and regarded him as the pride of the family. They even thought that the family would be more glorious under the leadership of this younger generation. After the verification, the head of the Li family provided his son with the best resources and planned his future. He decided to choose a sect with a rich background and prestige after the recruitment of 100 sects was opened. Little did he know that today, while he was taking a bath and changing clothes, Li Qingyang sneaked away and searched the mansion, but couldn't find him. Stinky boy. Did he go to meet that little bitch again? Unable to find Li Qingyang, the head of the Li family was so angry that he hesitated back and forth in the hall. Just at this time, the servant hurriedly reported, "Master, the young master went to the recruitment venue first and was valued by the Wu Liu Kangshan sect and wanted to be accepted as a disciple." What? The head of the Li family was overjoyed. Kangshan sect is the top power in Qingyang County, and its status is not inferior to that of the Lord of Qingyang City. My son is recruited by such a sect, which will not only bring honor to the family, but also make him great. But, the servant paused and said weakly, "The young master refused the recruitment of the elders of Kangshan sect." What? The head of the Li family almost fell to the ground. The same two words, different tones, can completely tell that his mood fell from heaven to hell. Did that bastard boy get kicked in the head by a donkey? That's why he refused the recruitment of Kangshan sect. No. This matter that concerns his whole life and the future of the Li family cannot be decided by his temper. So, the head of the Lee family hurried to the recruitment venue with his people. He happened to meet the elders of Changxiao sect who were about to pack up and leave, so he accepted the invitation on behalf of Li Qingyang. When he learned from the other party that his son had joined the sect, the head of the Li family subconsciously thought, is there a sect better than Changxiao sect? As a result, the boy joined the Strongest Sect. The Li family is a small family in Qingyang City, and it can be considered as an 8th-rate sect. The head of the Li family cannot accept his son joining a 9th-rate sect. After a brief moment of daze, he said in a deep voice, Qingyang, don't joke with your father. Dad. Li Qingyang said, I'm not kidding. I'm now a disciple of the Strongest Sect. This sentence formed a double critical hit, and the head of the Li family trembled and took 2 steps back involuntarily. Head. The servant came to support him hurriedly. The head of the Li family stabilized his body, pointed at Li Qingyang, and said in a trembling voice, the face of my Li family has been lost by you today. If his son joined a 6th-rate sect, he could accept it, but he could not accept joining the Tigu sect. After all, it was only a 9th-rate sect. What's more, such a rubbish sect not only has no future, but also makes the Li family a laughingstock. The warriors of various sects who were watching the excitement laughed. The first genius of Qingyang City has a problem with his brain, but his father is still normal and knows that joining the Tigu sect is embarrassing. Young master. The servant of the Li family hurriedly said, don't make the master angry, and leave that rubbish sect as soon as possible. Crack. Jun Changxiao clenched his fist slightly. It was really unpleasant that a family servant thought his gang was rubbish. Dad. Li Qingyang said seriously, people should be honest. Since I joined the Strongest Sect, I will not leave. You. The head of the Li family was so angry that his teeth were trembling, and he said, rebellious son. The elder of the Changxiao sect couldn't stand it anymore, and said, young master Li, filial piety comes first among all virtues. You are disobeying your father like this, which is a great unfilial piety. Li Qingyang's face showed entanglement and guilt. It's over. Jun Changxiao secretly said, the duck in hand is about to fly away. After a while, Li Qingyang said with a firm look, father, I have been following the path you paved since I was a child. Now that I have grown up, I should have my own choice. The head of the Li family pointed to the banner of the Strongest Sect and said, is joining a Jiu Liu sect your choice? Yes. Li Qingyang said seriously. Patriarch Li was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His fingers trembled as he said angrily, if you don't quit Tigu sect, you will no longer have me as your father. Mr. Li, Tigu sect has no future. You'd better quit as soon as possible. There are so many excellent sects here. Any one of them is better than Tigu sect. Don't be so stubborn. Patriarch Li is not young anymore. If he gets sick from anger, you, as his son, will regret it for the rest of your life. Mr. Li, please think twice before you act. The warriors from various sects who were eager to watch the fun shouted. They were not for the Li family leader, but simply did not want to see a genius with a top-grade spiritual root from a rubbish sect. A bunch of idiots. Jun Changxiao cursed secretly. Mr. Li. He bowed and said, your son's life should be chosen by himself. As a father, you should support him, not block him. What's more, he paused and said, my Strongest Sect is not as bad as you think. If Mr. Li joins my sect, his future achievements will definitely be higher. Huh? The Li family leader suppressed his anger and said coldly, do you think you are a piece of green onion? Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, my Strongest Sect is not a green onion, but a piece of jade waiting to be carved. Bah. A rubbish sect compares itself to a beautiful jade. How shameless. If I had a mouth like him, I would not worry about not being able to fool disciples. The warriors from various sects sneered. The head of the Li family was furious and said, my son must have been deceived by your sweet words to join the Tigu sect. Jun Changxiao said seriously, as the head of the Tigu sect, I have always recruited disciples in a serious manner and never bothered to deceive people. The head of the Li family said coldly, with your cultivation level, you are not even as good as my family's guests. How dare you call yourself the head of the sect? Jun Changxiao said, head of the Li family, although my cultivation level is not high, I can teach Mr. Li and make him a strong man. This is enough. Oh my god. He is really good at bragging. Mr. Lee is so talented, and he still wants to teach others? In my opinion, Mr. Lee can be the head of the Tegu sect to teach him how to improve his realm. Everyone's contempt for Jun Changxiao became stronger and stronger, but they had to admire him. He was thick-skinned and could brag. He was also a talent. The head of the Lee family became more and more angry. He wanted to point at Jun Changxiao and curse him, but after all, he was a well-known figure in Qingyang City, so he forced himself to suppress the idea. Master Jun. Just at this moment, the elder of Strongest Sect said, in order for disciples to become strong, they must first have an extraordinary understanding of martial arts. You are so confident, so you must have rich experience in martial arts, right? This old man is trying to set a trap for me. Jun Changxiao could tell that, if he answered that he had experience in martial arts, he would definitely make things difficult for him. If he said that he had no experience, the head of the Lee family would definitely force his son to leave the sect. Oh, it's so tangled. Please vote. Chapter 13, Initial Insight Talisman. To make disciples stronger, they don't have to be strong in martial arts themselves, but at least they must have rich knowledge of martial arts, and be able to give guidance during the practice. Not to mention the sects, even families and schools have corresponding martial arts instructors. The head of the Tegu sect threatened that he could make Li Qingyang's achievements only higher, not lower, and the elders of the Strongest sect had to come out and ask. It was indeed a trap. If Jun Changxiao answered that he had martial arts experience, he would definitely ask for advice. If the answer was no, the head of the Lee family would be even angrier and would firmly let his son withdraw from the Tegu sect. The old is still the best. The seemingly harmonious words concealed a murderous intention, deliberately embarrassing Jun Chang. Martial artists from various sects cast disdainful glances. How could a rubbish head, who didn't even have a realm, have martial arts experience? Jun Changxiao touched his nose habitually and said, I dare not be arrogant, nor will I belittle myself. If it comes to martial arts experience, I should be better than anyone present. This guy is getting more and more exaggerated, and the more he brags, the more outrageous it is. If fighting is not prohibited in Qingyang City, I will definitely kick him. I have this impulse too. The warriors of various factions couldn't listen anymore. They swore that, since they started practicing martial arts, they had never seen such a pretentious and nonsense guy. What a guy who is better than anyone present. The head of the Lee family said coldly, today, Lee wants to ask for the martial arts experience of the head of the Jun family. The elder of the Kangshan faction smiled but said nothing. He was originally going to ask this question, but now that the head of the Lee family said it first, it was obviously the most appropriate. Jun Changxiao said, what does the head of the Lee family want to ask? Don't look at this guy's calm face, but in fact he nervously opened the system mall and searched for martial arts related products. It hasn't been long since he crossed over, and his realm is only the 5th stage. He must have no martial arts experience. At this time, Sect Master Jun could only rely on the Strongest Sect system and hope that the mall would have martial arts products. Patriarch Lee said calmly, there is a sword technique that has been passed down for 100 years in Qingyang City, called 9-style Dilang sword. According to the introduction, there are 9 styles, but in fact there are only 8 styles, and the last style needs to be deduced by yourself. Since Sect Master Jun has martial arts experience, he should be able to deduce the last style, right? Ha ha ha. Patriarch Lee, this is a great question. The warriors in Qingyang City laughed with gloating. 9-style Dilang sword is a very well-known sword technique in their city. As long as you have the strength of opening meridians at the 5th stage, you can buy it from major martial arts stores. The first page of the secret book is written very clearly. There are 9 styles of sword techniques, but only 8 styles are recorded. The last style needs to be evolved by the practitioner himself. For more than 100 years, there have been at least 900,000 warriors who practiced 9-style Dilang sword, but no one has been able to comprehend the last style from beginning to end. There is a rumor that the mayor of Qingyang City comprehended the last style in his early years. But because it has never been used, everyone still knows nothing about the 9th style. 9 styles of Dilang sword? The elder of Strongest Sect murmured. He had heard of this sword technique, and had planned to buy the last style of evolution. Later, he gave up after learning that the level was only low. Martial arts and mental skills are also divided into levels in Xingyan continent. Just like the spiritual root qualifications, they are divided into low level, ordinary, middle level, high level, holy and divine. The elders of Changxiao sect have reached the peak of martial arts. They practice martial arts above ordinary level in the sect, so they naturally look down on low level. If the level is high, how can it become a sword technique popularized by old people in Qingyang City? Master Jun, the elder of Changxiao sect, smiled and said, I have also heard a little about the 9 styles of Dilang sword. If you can comprehend the 9th style, it proves that you have the real stuff. This old guy is very good at fanning the flames. Jun Changxiao said proudly, what's so difficult about comprehending a mere sword technique? Everyone sneered. Few people have comprehended it in the past 100 years. If you, a rookie, can do it, it's weird. Li Qingyang was looking forward to it. He also practiced the 9 styles of Dilang sword, but was stuck at the 8th style, and could not comprehend the 9th style. If the head of the sect could do it, it would mean that he followed the right sect and the right person. Under the gaze of everyone, Jun Changxiao was repeatedly browsing the primary mall, looking for products related to swordsmanship, but found nothing. It's over. It's over. Without such products, how can I pretend to be cool? Bah. How can I evolve the 9th style of Dilang sword? Huh. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao's eye stopped on the product called Insight Talisman, so he hurriedly clicked on the detailed introduction. This function of viewing detailed introductions of products was discovered by accident. Item: Primary Insight Talisman. Effects: after use, you can gain insight into the opponent's martial arts and secret moves, so that you can quickly comprehend them. Time limit: 60 minutes. Price: 10 contribution points. Quickly comprehend. Jun Changxiao was secretly delighted and said, it should be able to help me comprehend the 9th sword technique. Swish. He directly clicked on the Insight Talisman. Ding. The host consumed 10 contribution points and obtained Insight Talisman X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. School contribution value: 10 hundredths. Jun Chang laughed and said, Master Li, I have never practiced the 9-style Dilang sword you mentioned, so how can I evolve the 9th style? Haha, the best-selling sword technique in Qingyang City, but the master has never practiced it. Although the 9-style Dilang sword is of low quality, it costs 100 taels. He can't afford it with his poor appearance. That makes sense. That makes sense. This kind of sword technique requires one to comprehend one style at a time. It may take a long time for him to evolve the 9th style. Everyone discussed privately. Master Li's face fell again. At that moment, he felt that he was being played by this guy as an idiot. Suppressing his anger, Master Li smiled and said, it just so happens that I carry a sword manual of the 9-style Dilang sword with me. Master Jun can take it for a search. After that, he took out a blue-covered secret book from the space ring. Thank you. Jun Changxiao raised his hand to take it. Patriarch Li said, however, I have to make it clear. If Sect Master Jun cannot evolve the 9th style, please expel my son from the Tegu sect. His son won't leave. Then let the sect master expel him on his own initiative. Patriarch Li believed that it would be very difficult for a guy who had not practiced the 9 styles of Dilang sword to comprehend the 9th style, let alone the 5th or 6th style. No problem. Jun Changxiao agreed readily. Patriarch Li was still worried and said, Princess Jun, please keep your word. Don't worry. Jun Changxiao said, the purpose of our Tegu sect is to be a person of iron, and do things of iron, and naturally we will not break our promises. After getting a satisfactory answer, Patriarch Li threw the sword manual over. At the recruitment venue, with so many martial artists from various sects watching, he didn't think the other party would cheat. Of course. Jun Changxiao took the sword manual and said, if I comprehend the 9th style of swordsmanship, what should Master Li do? In the past 100 years, only the city lord who was rumored to have comprehended it. Did he really think he could do it? Master Li sneered in his heart, but bowed his hands on the surface and said, if Master Jun comprehends the 9th style of swordsmanship, it will be a blessing for my son Qingyang to practice in the Tegu sect. With this, Jun Changxiao was relieved. He took a deep breath. then flipped through the sword manual. After seeing the complicated formulas and drawn sword styles on it, he suddenly felt dizzy. Although he inherited the memory of the original owner and had some understanding of the martial arts secrets in this world, it was still like reading a heavenly book when he saw such a complicated sword manual for the first time. I hope the Talisman of Insight can help me quickly comprehend the sword manual, Jun Changxiao said secretly, and the idea of integrating into the ring was also to crush the talisman. That was exchanged with a snap. Swish. A stream of invisible energy flowed into the sea of consciousness along the ring. Jun Changxiao suddenly felt dizzy and the unhappy feeling was fleeting. When he came to his senses, he looked at the formulas and sword styles in the sword manual. Everything was so simple and easy to understand. P.S. The book has been signed. Well, that is to say, you can give rewards. Put a bowl on it, ask for rewards, and also ask for recommendation votes. Chapter 14 Sword Realm. Jun Changxiao, who crushed the Insight Talisman, looked at the sword manual again and was overjoyed because the obscure sword tactics and strange sword styles were understood at once. What's more exaggerated is that the words printed on the sword manual seemed to come alive, turning into streams of light and merging into the sea of consciousness and began to arrange themselves and evolve on their own. Swish. Jun Changxiao memorized the first page of sword styles, turned to the second page, and after it was printed in the sea of consciousness, he began to turn to the third page, the fourth page, and the fifth page. Seeing him flipping through the sword manual like a cursory glance, the faces of the warriors of various factions appeared surprised. The sword manual is different from martial arts. First, you have to memorize the sword tactics, and second, you have to memorize the sword styles. He scanned it page by page. Not to mention remembering the sword style movements. Even remembering the formula is difficult. Is it because it is difficult to comprehend, so you choose to give up? Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's sea of consciousness completely evolved the first style of the 9 styles of Dilang sword, Qian Qian. He closed the sword manual and said, "Bring me the sword." Clang. The sword was unsheathed and handed over. Jun Changxiao took it from Lu Qian Qian and waved his wrist lightly. Swish. The 3-foot-long sword fluttered through the space, forming a wave of airflow visible to the naked eye. The wave of airflow formed during the sword swing, which means that he has already comprehended the first move of the 9-move Dilang sword. How is it possible? The warriors of various sects who were waiting to see the joke froze their expressions when they saw the airflow. The elder of the Kangxian sect was stunned. What he cared about was not the airflow like the sea waves, but that it didn't take long for this boy to comprehend the sword manual and skillfully perform the first move. Yes, not long. It was only 1 minute in Earth time. For many people, 1 minute is enough to go to the toilet without even taking off their pants, but Jun Changxiao has already comprehended it. Impossible. The elder of the Kangxian sect denied secretly. As a top martial artist, he could master this low-grade martial art with a 90% chance of success, but it would never be so fast. Unless he had practiced it before. Swish. Jun Changxiao turned his feet, retracted his arm, and swung his sword again. But the second wave of air appeared, connecting with the first one. This was the second style of the 9-style Dilang sword, which took 1 minute and 5 seconds to comprehend. At that moment, the warriors of various factions opened their mouths. Are you kidding? How could the head of this rubbish Tegu faction comprehend the second style of the 9-style Dilang sword in just a few breaths? The head of the Li family looked unbelievable. He remembered deeply that it took him 5 days to comprehend the second style. How did this guy do it? Or did he practice the 9-style Dilang sword? Pretending not to practice it? He and the elders of the Kangxian faction thought of the same thing. Any normal warrior would think so. After all, it is absolutely impossible to comprehend the first 2 styles of the 9-style Dilang sword in a very short time. Sorry. With the blessing of the Insight Talisman, Jun Changxiao really did it. Swish. He swung his sword again, and the third wave of airflow condensed out, connecting the previous and the next. This is the third style of the 9-style Dilang sword, which takes 1 minute and 10 seconds. In other words, the warriors of various factions present only blinked a few times, and Master Jun completely comprehended the third style, and was able to use it skillfully. Very scary, very terrifying. Li Qingyang's eyes flashed with luster, and he said to himself, the master's comprehension speed is more than 10 times faster than mine. It seems that he really followed the right person. Lu Qian thought, to be able to comprehend so quickly, the master's spiritual roots should be higher than the second junior brother. Swish, swish. Jun Changxiao was immersed in the sword technique, and layers of waves swarmed out. They overlapped and increased their power, just like endless waves. Wave after wave, layer upon layer. This is the origin of the name of the 9-style Dilang sword. Swish. Jun Changxiao swung his sword again, and the waves formed. 7 waves had gathered on the martial arts field. He comprehended the 7th move in just 1 minute and 30 seconds. Humph. Patriarch Li said disdainfully, you have comprehended the 9 moves of Dilang sword, but you still say you have never practiced it. How shameless. No matter how fast Jun Changxiao performed the first 7 moves, he had already determined in his heart that he had comprehended them before. That's what I said. How could a 9th-rate sect leader comprehend the first 7 moves so quickly? It turns out he practiced them before. Damn, I almost got fooled by him. What a good acting skill. Look, that guy is still acting. When Jun Changxiao played the 8th move again, another wave was formed. The focus of the warriors from various sects was not on this, but on his face as he focused on swinging the sword. A 9th-rate sect. A first-rate acting skill. The elder of Kangshan sect said indifferently, no matter how well you act, as long as you can't perform the 9th move, you will still be exposed. This statement was recognized by everyone. Do you like to act? Such a big martial arts arena is your stage for performance. But if you can't perform the 9th move, no matter how hard you perform, it can only be described as lame. The head of the Li family put his hands behind his back and sneered. Swish. After performing the 8th move, Jun Changxiao put away his sword and stood, lost in thought, as if he was exploring the last move. Can't perform anymore? Everyone mocked. Jun Changxiao didn't hear the outside voice, because when he was comprehending the sword method, he suddenly entered a wonderful level. Gradually, a faint breath emerged from his body, exuding a sharp momentum. The elders of the Kangshan school were stunned. The smile on the face of the head of the Li family also froze. This is... Li Qingyang frowned slightly and said solemnly, Sword Realm. What? The warriors of various factions almost popped their eyes out when they heard this. Sword Realm, also known as the Realm of Sword Intent, a level of swordsmanship similar to enlightenment. If a warrior triggers it and enters the Realm of Sword Intent, he can benefit greatly from it. Oh my god. What kind of shit luck did this guy have? He actually entered the Sword Realm. Throughout the ages, how many swordsmen have never had such an opportunity in their entire lives? Perhaps because they were too shocked, some warriors gradually spoke louder. The elder of Kangshan sect said in a deep voice, this boy's entry into the sword realm is an opportunity that he has been looking for. Don't disturb him. The warriors of various sects who had some thoughts hurriedly shut their mouths. The elder of Kangshan sect was not a bad person, because he stopped everyone in time and didn't disturb them. The reason why he targeted Jun Changxiao was that he didn't want Li Qingyang to go astray and waste such a good spiritual root qualification. Because of the scolding of the elder of Kangshan sect, the entire martial arts field was silent, and the eyes of the warriors of various sects were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. It's an opportunity that can only be encountered by chance. It's really unfair to let a piece of trash encounter it. Swish. Jun Changxiao, who was always in a state of wondering, suddenly flashed a sharp luster in his eyes, waved his right arm, and swung his long sword frequently in the void. Swish. Swish, swish. The first, second, and third moves of the 9-style Dilang sword. After he performed the first 8 moves in one breath, he tapped his toes, flew into the air, and chopped down with his sword. Whoosh. The 8 rippling waves in the air were attracted and quickly gathered together, turning into white sword beams, which slammed into the boulder outside the martial arts arena. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and the stone weighing thousands of pounds collapsed on the spot. Hiss. Seeing this, the warriors of various factions gasped in shock. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Guidance. The stone outside the martial arts arena weighed thousands of pounds. It was smashed by Jun Changxiao's sword, shocking everyone to gasp. Some of the martial artists present had either the 8th or 9th stage of Kame, or had reached the level of martial arts apprentices, so they could break a large stone. But they saw very clearly that when Jun Changxiao drew his sword, the martial arts aura he exuded was only at the 5th stage of Kame, so it was incredible that he could break a huge stone weighing thousands of pounds. At the Kame level, the power increases by 100 pounds for each meridian opened. Even if one is born with supernatural power and has the 5th stage of Kame, the maximum power can only burst out about 1,000 pounds. It is absolutely impossible to shake a stone weighing more than 2,000 pounds. Unless, swish, Jun Changxiao floated down and said with a smile, "Master Li, this is the 9th style of the 9-style Dilang sword. This seat has evolved it." The martial artists of various factions looked at it and locked onto the sword in his hand and found that there was nothing special about it. High quality weapons can provide more power to warriors. The sword held by Jun Changxiao is ordinary, which means, oh my god, is that sword really the 9th style? I heard that if the 9-style Dilang sword is comprehended to the 9th style, the power formed is not weaker than ordinary martial arts. As everyone was discussing, they had the answer in their hearts. With the cultivation of the 5th stage of Kame, an ordinary weapon, a sword can break thousands of pounds of boulders. Only the 9th style comparable to ordinary martial arts can do it. Thinking of this, the expressions on everyone's faces became wonderful. It is rumored that only the city lord can comprehend the 9th style, but today it was evolved by the head of the Jiu sect. A heavy blow, a ruthless slap in the face. The head of the Li family said in disbelief, "How is it possible?" The elders of the Strongest Sect had a complicated look in their eyes. After a while, they bowed and said, "The fact that the head of Jun can evolve the 9th style in a short time makes Ma admire it very much. This is sincere admiration. Thank you." Jun Chang smiled and returned the sword to Lu Qian with his hands behind his back, showing a master's demeanor. Patriarch Li felt mixed emotions. He thought he could use the 9-style Dilang sword to stump him, but he didn't expect that he could really perform the 9th style that no one had comprehended for 100 years. Patriarch Li. Jun Chang smiled. "Now that I have evolved the 9th style, can your son stay in my Tegu sect?" Patriarch Li remained silent. He was shocked and surprised to perform the 9th style of the 9-style Dilang sword, but after all, it was a low-grade sword technique, and he still didn't think his son had a future with him. Patriarch Li. Jun Chang smiled. "You should be a man of your word." Patriarch Li's face turned ugly. At this time, the elder of Strongest Sect bowed and said, "Master Jun has an extraordinary understanding of martial arts. Ma has a problem here, and hopes to solve it. Please speak." Jun Chang smiled. It only took 2 minutes to comprehend the 9-style Dilang sword, and there is still a lot of time left. If he continues to perform well, he can establish prestige for himself and the sect. The elder of Strongest Sect said, "Ma has been practicing a mental method for these years, but it is difficult to improve after comprehending the 4th level. I hope that Master Jun can give me some advice." The warriors of various sects were shocked. The elder of the 5th-rate Strongest Sect, a real martial artist, was asking a 9th-rate master for advice. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, it would be hard to believe. Jun Chang smiled and said, "If Elder Ma is willing to tell you the mental formula, I can give it a try." The elder of Strongest Sect smiled and stood still. A warrior suppressed his voice and said, "Elder Ma is communicating with that guy using the sect's sound transmission technique. This is a high-level martial art. I really hope that one day I can join Strongest Sect and practice martial arts at this level." Everyone was envious when they heard this. The martial arts realm is important in Xinjiang continent, and the martial arts mental method is also important. This kind of martial arts that can be used for sound transmission at the martial artist stage is very good. A little bit. After learning the secret formula, Jun Changxiao said, "It's not a big problem." The elder of Strongest Sect was a little upset. The secret formula he was talking about was at the level of ordinary products. He had been struggling to comprehend it for more than 10 years, but he had only cultivated to the 4th level. He actually answered with "It's not a big problem." Jun Changxiao stood there, closed his eyes, and the secret formula he had memorized was frantically running and analyzing in his sea of consciousness. Elder Ma. After a while, Jun Changxiao whispered in his ear. The warriors of various sects could not hear the content clearly, but they could clearly see that the expression on the face of the elder of Strongest Sect was first stunned, then dumbfounded, then suddenly realized, and finally turned into ecstasy. Jun Changxiao said, "According to my advice, go back and practice for a month or 2, and you should be able to break through to a higher level." Swish. The elder of Strongest Sect excitedly bowed and said, "The secret formula has puzzled Ma for several years. Today, listening to the words of Master Jun, it is like a revelation." The head of the Li family was dumbfounded. Did that guy really solve the martial arts problem for Elder Ma? Jun Changxiao said modestly, "Elder Ma is confused because he is involved in the matter. If it were someone else, he could also help him solve his doubts." The elder of Strongest Sect shook his head and said, "Without Master Jun's profound understanding of martial arts, it is impossible for me to solve Ma's doubts." To be praised so highly by Elder Ma, that guy must be capable. Could it be? Are there really people in this world who have a low level of cultivation, but a high level of understanding of martial arts? The martial artists of various sects secretly complained. Master Jun. The elder of Strongest Sect bowed and said, "Ma has something to return to the sect to deal with. If we meet again in the future, I will definitely ask for your advice on martial arts." After receiving the advice, he will definitely be eager to go back, to retreat and strive to break through the 5th level of the mind method, and step from a martial arts master to a martial arts master in one fell swoop. Jun Chang smiled, and bowed and said, "See you later." The elder of Strongest Sect did not hesitate too much, and left with his disciples, wishing to return to the sect to retreat and comprehend now. After watching Elder Ma leave, a middle-aged man came with a shaking smile and said, "Master Jun, Chen also has a problem in martial arts, and I hope you can give me some advice." "Of course you can." Jun Chang smiled and said, "But pay 100 taels first. After all, Strongest Sect is a 5th-rate sect." He gave Elder Ma face, and volunteered to give him advice on his problems. "These 8th and 9th-rate sects must pay." "Yes, yes." The middle-aged man hurriedly handed over a silver note worth 100 taels. In his opinion, he could even solve Elder Ma's martial arts problems, so it was worth spending 100 taels. Jun Changxiao took the silver note and said, "Please speak." The middle-aged man was afraid of being heard by others, so he hurried over and whispered his confusion about martial arts. Jun Changxiao used his insight to quickly analyze the martial arts the other party said, and whispered the correct opinion. "Yes." The middle-aged man patted his forehead and said, "Why don't I know how to adapt?" "Thank you, Master Jun, for your guidance. Chen will take his leave first." Seeing that guy leave happily, even if the martial artists of various factions were stupid, they could see that the master of the Iron Bone faction was really talented. "Master Jun, Chang has a problem, please. 100 taels." "Yes, yes." The martial artist surnamed Chang hurriedly paid the money, and after getting the guidance, he left happily. As a result, many martial artists who encountered problems in martial arts came around, and many of them had laughed at Jun Changxiao. "It's okay, it's okay. I've got it all in mind. Want some advice? Sure, pay me 200 taels." The warrior who had laughed at Jun Changxiao was devastated, but he still paid the money with a painful heart, and received satisfactory answers one by one. Chapter 16 Big Profit, Huge Profit. In any world, the importance of money is self-evident, not to mention buying weapons and martial arts. Even daily necessities such as firewood, rice, oil and salt need money to buy. The Tigos faction has no money, because several previous disciples used their only assets to smooth relations, hoping to rescue Master Wan from prison. What was the result? Not long after the money was sent, Master Wan was executed for escaping from prison. The Tigos faction, which was already tightening its belt to make ends meet, was in even worse shape. The two disciples couldn't stand it, ate their last meal, and went back to their homes to find their mothers. Jun Changxiao, who traveled through time, ate steamed buns, and drank mountain water for 3 meals a day during the few days he stayed in the sect. The noodles that Lu Kai and Qian ate when she joined the sect were also begged from Aunt Huang in the village. The Tigus Heng's Heng faction needs to develop, and money must also be made. So, Master Jun used the insight talisman that had not expired and began his first journey to make money in another world. Didn't laugh at the need for guidance. 100 taels. Previously, he laughed at himself and the Iron Bone School for needing guidance. 200 taels. Small business, no bargaining. Because he comprehended the 9th style of the 9-style Dilang sword and gave guidance to the elders of the Kangshan school, the warriors of various schools were distressed, but they were still willing to spend money to ask for guidance. In just 30 minutes, Jun Changxiao helped 20 warriors solve their martial arts problems and earned more than 3,000 taels. Looking at the increasing number of silver bills in the space ring, he said happily, although I can't sell medicine, I can make money with more items. Master Jun. Just after giving guidance to a warrior on the shortcomings of boxing, the head of the Li family came over and said with difficulty, Li has a problem here too. I hope you can help me with it. The previous 9-style Dilang sword was nothing more than a challenge. Now seeing so many people benefit from his guidance and leave happily, he is completely moved and wants to solve the martial arts problem that has puzzled him for many years. Sure. Jun Chang smiled and said, 1,000 taels. What? The head of the Li family almost lost his balance and asked in surprise, 1,000 taels? Jun Chang smiled and said, yes, 1,000 taels. Everyone's mouth twitched slightly. This guy was obviously deliberately making things difficult for the head of the Li family. It must be because he had just stopped his son from joining the Tigu sect. Master Jun. The head of the Li family collapsed and said, others can only give 200 taels at most. Why do I need 1,000 taels? Jun Chang smiled and said, look at the clothes of the head of the Li family. I think he is not short of money. Hearing this, the head of the Li family almost fainted. Yes, I have money, but money doesn't just blow into my pocket out of thin air. Master Jun. The head of the Li family said in a deep voice, are you taking me as a fool? Jun Chang smiled and said, you can understand it that way. You. The head of the Li family was angry. Thinking that he needed help from others, he still suppressed his anger. Master. Li Qingyang stepped forward and said, please give me a discount for my father for the sake of my disciple. Jun Changxiao held his chin and thought for a while. Okay, for the sake of you being the father of my disciples, I'll give you a discount of 1 tael. The warriors from various sects almost fell down. A discount of 1,000 taels to 1 tael is unheard of. Since they want to keep Li Qingyang, they will definitely not deliberately embarrass the head of the Li family, so Jun Changxiao just symbolically helped him with the difficult problems in martial arts for 1 tael. I see. After receiving the guidance, the head of the Li family seemed to have suddenly opened his eyes. He had doubts about the evolution of the 9th style before, but now that the martial arts problem that had puzzled him for many years has been solved, he has completely agreed with Jun Changxiao. My son is in the Tigu sect, and under his guidance, his future achievements will definitely be higher. Not only the head of the Li family, but also the warriors from various sects who benefited from the guidance also realized that the person they had underestimated was actually not simple. A insight talisman allowed Jun Changxiao to earn a lot of silver and gain a lot of prestige, which can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Wrong. It was 3 birds with 1 stone. Because while helping to instruct, Master Jun also learned all kinds of martial arts skills. Although the level is lower, it has everything from swordsmanship, boxing, mental skills, and palm skills. If you want to buy it with money, it will cost at least several thousand taels. Big profit, bloody profit. Everyone. After instructing another warrior on martial arts, Jun Changxiao said with a slightly tired look, I'm tired, let's stop here. No, Master Jun. The warriors who didn't get a number were anxious. A warrior even took out 4 silver notes and said, Master Jun, I'm willing to pay 400 taels. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, helping you instruct on martial arts has consumed too much of my mind and energy. It will take me 10 days and a half months to recover. He wanted to continue making money, but after instructing the previous warrior, the insight talisman expired. Jun Changxiao was planning to redeem it once more, but when he opened the mall, he saw that the talisman of insight was grey and the note was, "This item can only be purchased once a month." Damn it. The purchase of healing pills is limited, and so are the talismans. Can I still have fun? Can I still make money happily? Without the blessing of the talisman of insight, Jun Changxiao was like being beaten back to his original form, so he could only look very tired. The warriors of each faction returned to their own front door in frustration, and the recruitment of the 100 sects that had been interrupted continued. King Guiyang, the head of the Li family, said, "Follow the Master Jun and practice well. Don't let your father down." "Yes." Li King Guiyang nodded. The head of the Li family talked to Jun Changxiao with a rather flattering tone, and hurried back to the Li family to digest the instructions he had received in seclusion. "Dad, I want to join the Tigu sect." "Father, mother, I have made up my mind. I want to join the Tigu sect." "Gauden, what are you still hesitating about? Let's go and sign up for the Tigu sect." The recruitment of the 100 sects was resumed. The young men and women who were originally considering joining a sect swarmed into the Tigu sect and rushed to sign up. They were moved when Li King Guiyang joined the Tigu sect. Later, they witnessed Jun Changxiao giving martial arts advice to the elders of the Kangshan sect and even to the warriors of various sects, so they naturally signed up without hesitation. Just now, the sects were bustling, but no one was interested in the Tigu sect. Now the sects are empty, but the Tigu sect is overcrowded. "Don't push, don't push," Jun Changxiao shouted. "Come one by one. King Guiyang, don't stand there stupidly, come and help." Because there were too many boys and girls who signed up, Jun Changxiao was immediately in a panic. No, there are too many people, we must choose the best. Jun Changxiao ordered his eldest and second disciples to let the applicants fill out the entry form and then decide whether to accept them based on their qualifications and cultivation. The main task given by the system is to make the Tigos sect the strongest sect. What is considered strong? It must be that the sect is strong and the disciples must be strong. If you randomly choose a group of crooked melons and crack dates, the number of people is enough, but the strength is not enough, and the sect level cannot be raised. It will definitely be in vain in the end. Jun Changxiao knew very well that what he needed now was elite soldiers and good generals, so he secretly required that those who entered the Tigu sect must have at least middle grade spiritual roots, and if they were of high grade, it would be even better. However, after a statistics, among the hundreds of young people who signed up, only 10 had middle grade spiritual roots, and the others were either low grade or ordinary, and as for high grade, they did not exist at all. Although Qingyang City is the main city of Qingyang County, it is a small place after all. It is already very good to have a Li Qingyang with a top grade spiritual root. It's not good enough. But let's develop the number of people in the sect to the upper limit of 100 first. Jun Changxiao took the seal of the head of the sect and stamped it on the entry form with medium grade spiritual roots. Ding. Sect members. 400ths. Ding. Sect contribution value. 1100ths. PS. Please vote and reward. Chapter 17 Exchange. First grade cold edge sword. Ding. Sect members. 5300ths. Ding. Sect contribution value. 6000ths. Jun Changxiao stamped the seals one after another and soon recruited 50 disciples. The system prompts frequently rang in his ears. It was wonderful and comfortable. Among these newly recruited members, there were 10 with medium grade spiritual roots, and the remaining 40 were all ordinary spiritual roots. The warriors of various sects who were watching from afar were full of envy. As far as they knew, there were only more than 10 middle grade spiritual roots and 50 or 60 ordinary spiritual roots in this recruitment of 100 sects, and almost all of them were recruited by the Tigu sect. Alas. Today's work was in vain, and I can only wait for the next session. The warriors of various sects were very depressed, and the head of the Jun sect continued to stamp the seals to recruit disciples with low grade spiritual roots. There was no way. In order to make up 100 people, I could only choose generals from the dwarfs. Besides, even if the spiritual roots are a little poor, they can be cultivated later. Ding. Ding. Sect members. 100 hundredths. Ding. Sect contribution value. 107 hundredths. Ding. The sect membership is full. The host needs to improve the sect construction and expand the upper limit before continuing to recruit disciples. Reminder. If you forcibly accept disciples after it is full, you will be severely punished. The sect contribution value overflows. The host must consume it within 24 hours, otherwise the overflow contribution value will be automatically deducted. The sect is full and meets the conditions. Ding. The system automatically opens the sect achievement value and sect tasks for the host. Jun Changxiao was startled and quickly opened the data panel. Sect name, Strongest Sect. Sect leader, Jun Changxiao. Sect level, 9 stream. Sect construction, level 1. Sect members. 100 hundredths. Sect contribution value. 107 hundredths. Sect achievement value. 0 hundredths. Sect mission, none. Sect main mission, within 100 years, make Strongest Sect the strongest sect in the falling star continent, with 100,000 disciples. If it is not completed, the host will be dead when the time comes. System. Jun Changxiao said puzzledly, what are sect achievement values and sect missions? The system said, disciples who accept sect missions and complete them can obtain corresponding sect achievement values. Jun Changxiao understood and said, what is the use of achievement values? The system explained, after the achievement value reaches the maximum value, the sect construction can be upgraded. Jun Changxiao was startled and said, didn't you say before that recruiting disciples can upgrade the construction of the sect? How come there is another sect contribution value? The system explained slowly, recruiting disciples can unlock sect tasks, and completing sect tasks can improve the construction of the sect. There is no contradiction between the two. Jun Changxiao was speechless. He ignored the sect contribution value and tasks for the time being, and focused on the contribution value. The extra contribution value will be deducted within 24 hours, and must be spent quickly. Jun Changxiao skillfully opened the beginner mall and carefully browsed through each item. Finally, he chose the item called First Grade Cold Edge Sword. Ding. The host consumed 10 contribution points and obtained one First Grade Cold Edge Sword, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Sect contribution value. 97 hundredths. When Jun Changxiao took back the panel, he took a look at the First Grade Cold Sword he bought and found that it was annotated. Purchase limit 4/5 times this month. The heaven-defying elixir and talisman are limited to 1 time per month, but weapons can be bought 5 times. What a pit. The reason why Jun Changxiao chose the sword is that he practiced the 9th-style Dilang sword. Although the sword technique itself is of low grade, the 9th style is quite powerful. With a sword, it can at least be used for self-defense. Swish. The mind merged into the space ring. Jun Changxiao saw a sword floating next to the time bomb. There were 2 beads inlaid on the scabbard, flashing a faint blue light. Snap. Walking up, he grasped the First Grade Cold Sword and immediately felt the cold breath seeping into his palm. It's quite cold. I don't know how the quality is. Jun Changxiao grasped the hilt and pulled it out lightly, but after hearing a clang, the 3-foot-long sword came out of the scabbard. Whoosh. The cold breath hits you in the face, making you shudder. The width and length of the First Grade Cold Sword are no different from ordinary swords, but there is a faint chill lingering around the sword, giving people a feeling that it is definitely not an ordinary sword. Although Jun Changxiao's understanding of swords is not high, he also praised sincerely, good sword, master. Liu Qian said with a gloomy face, who are you calling mean? Jun Changxiao quickly retracted his thoughts and said with a smile, I'm talking about myself. Li Qingyang and others were all upset. He said he was mean. Our master is a bit weird. Liu Qian rolled her eyes at him and said lightly, many people are waiting. Hurry up and stamp the seal of the master. No need. Jun Changxiao said, these members are just right. If I accept too many disciples, I can't afford them. The system has reminded that forcibly accepting disciples after the full membership will be punished. He dare not do it recklessly. What's more, the remaining boys and girls are all low-grade spiritual roots and have only opened their meridians. There is no value in training them. King Guiyang. Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers and said, closing the stall, leaving. Not recruiting? Master Jun, please consider it. It's okay to let me be a registered disciple. Even if I have to do odd jobs, I'm willing. Many young people begged. Jun Changxiao said helplessly, mighty Strongest Sect is small and can't accommodate too many disciples. If you want to join and practice to become a martial arts apprentice in the future, you can come to King Guiyang village. The boys and girls dispersed disappointedly. They knew that without the training of outstanding mentors, resources, and opportunities, it would be a long time to break through to become a martial arts apprentice by relying on themselves. Master, King Guiyang said, the door is closed, and we can set off. Let's go. Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves and left gracefully. When he first came to King Guiyang City, he only had one disciple, and was very poor. Now he left with money, martial arts, and disciples, which is definitely a great harvest. Stop. However, before he walked out of the martial arts arena, a cold shout came from behind him. Jun Changxiao stopped and looked back. He saw a middle-aged man in a blue robe, surrounded by dozens of young disciples. It's Elder Wei of Linquan Sect. He looks a bit unhappy. Is he going to cause trouble for Tegu Sect? Elder Wei has a bad temper. If anyone offends him and his disciples, he will definitely not let it go. The warriors of various sects whispered, with fear in their eyes. Those who were closer saw Wei coming with his disciples, and subconsciously stepped back a few steps to make way for him. Seeing this, Jun Changxiao thought to himself, this guy is just a member of the 9th-rate Linquan Sect. Why are many warriors from the 8th-rate sects afraid of him? The reason is very simple. Wei Yanu has 4 brothers, named after joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness. They were disciples of the 5th-rate Linquan Sect. After learning martial arts, they went down the mountain to establish Linquan Sect. The eldest brother became the leader, and the 3 brothers became elders. The warriors of various sects are not afraid of Linquan Sect, but of Linquan Sect. Chapter 18. On the stage of grudges, life and death are not important. Jun Changxiao didn't know anything about Linquan Sect, so he smiled and said, is there something wrong? Of course there is something wrong. Wei Yi strode over angrily, his eyes full of disdain, and said, how can you leave peacefully after beating up my Linquan Sect disciples? What? Beat up Linquan Sect disciples? The Tegu Sect is in trouble. Last year, a disciple from an 8th-rate sect beat up a disciple from a Linquan Sect, and as a result, the sect leader personally led all the disciples to apologize. What happened later? The disciple who beat up the disciple was abolished and expelled from the sect, and the 8th-rate sect paid Linquan Sect a lot of money. So, the Tegu Sect is really in big trouble. Everyone whispered and looked at Jun Changxiao with some sympathy. The deacon of the Changdao sect snorted coldly, thinking, provoking Linquan Sect is like provoking the king of hell. Kit, wait for bad luck. Martial artists from various sects paid Jun Changxiao to teach them martial arts, but he and the disciples of the Huxiao sect did not go. After all, they laughed the most fiercely before, and they were too embarrassed to ask for advice. Now that the elder of Linquan Sect has appeared, it instantly arouses a twisted mentality, hoping to see that guy being severely humiliated and bullied. So you are from Linquan Sect? Jun Changxiao pretended to be enlightened and nodded. Yes, I beat him. Beat him. He counted and said, there should be 5. 5? The corners of the mouths of the warriors from various sects twitched. Last year, the disciples of the 8th-rate sect beat 1, and the leader took all the disciples to apologize. If you beat 5, I'm afraid there will be no chance of reconciliation. Wei Yanu said indifferently, since the leader Jun has admitted it, Wei will seek justice for the disciples who were beaten today. Ding. Side quest triggered. Another quest. Jun Changxiao hurriedly opened the attribute panel and saw that the side quest was, teach the elder of Linquan Sect who came to cause trouble a lesson 0/1, elite quest. Elite quest. As an earthling, the leader Jun had been exposed to online games, which had elite quests, mostly asking players to deal with a small boss. Elite quests are usually difficult, and if completed, the rewards will be very rich. Interesting. Jun Changxiao took back the attribute panel, touched his nose and said, "Your disciples test my female disciples. I'm kind-hearted and just punish them a little. You dared to lick my face and ask for justice in front of me?" The warriors of various sects were stunned. The leader of the Tegu sect brought out the word fuck. Isn't he afraid of angering the other party and making things difficult to adjust? One came to cause trouble on purpose, and the other wanted to complete the task. Adjustment? There is no such thing. The deacon of the Changdao sect and the disciples of the Huxiao sect were secretly happy. Dare to swear in front of the hot-tempered elder of the Linquan sect. This is definitely a typical way to die. Sure enough, Wei Yinu's face darkened, his eyes flashed with anger and said, "Boy, you are looking for death." Crack. He clenched his fists, and 12 rays of light appeared on his wrists. TSK. Jun Changxiao said disdainfully, "I thought the elder of the Linquan sect was a big shot, but it turns out to be just a piece of trash with 12 meridians." Everyone was speechless. You are the head of the sect, but your strength is only at the 5th stage of opening meridians. How dare you say that to others? Hearing the word rubbish, Wei Yinu became even more furious and immediately pointed to one side and said, "You little bastard, you have the guts to go to the grudge stage with me." Swish, swish. Everyone moved away, and a stone platform about 10 meters long and 3 meters high appeared not far behind them. This is the grudge stage of Qingyang City. There is one in each of the 4 districts. Warriors cannot fight in the city without permission. If there are any grudges, they can go to the stage to resolve them. Elder Wei has issued a challenge. Everyone exclaimed. In a world where martial arts are respected, it is a very serious matter for a warrior to challenge another warrior. Will sect leader Jun accept the challenge? The difference in strength is too great, and he has the right to refuse the challenge. Although sect leader Jun has rich experience in martial arts, his cultivation is very low, so he should not accept the challenge. That's what he said, but he is the sect leader of a sect. Elder Wei has issued a challenge, and according to the position comparison, he must accept the challenge. When everyone was discussing, they kept looking at Jun Changxiao. After all, no matter how much they speculated, the decision of whether to challenge or not was on him. Sect leader Li Qingyang came over and whispered, "On the stage of grudges, life and death will not matter." Really? Jun Changxiao's face changed slightly. Li Qingyang looked at Wei Yinu and said, "His challenge will be accepted by his disciples." Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "How can I let my disciples risk their lives to fight on behalf of the elders of his sect?" As he spoke, he strode towards the stage of grudges. Accepted. Master Jun actually accepted the challenge. With his level of cultivation, he will definitely be beaten to a pulp by Elder Wei. The warriors of various sects were talking about it. Among them, there were people with ulterior motives who were deliberately making trouble, such as the deacon of the Longsword sect and the disciples of the Tiger Ore sect. Too much trouble. Lu Qian frowned slightly. The elder of the Linquan sect has the cultivation level of opening meridians at the 12th level, while Jun Changxiao only has the 5th level. The gap is so big, isn't it courting death to go up there? The newly joined disciples also became worried. The master is very good at martial arts knowledge, but his cultivation level is a bit low. How can he face the elder of the Linquan sect who is close to a martial arts apprentice? When Jun Changxiao strode onto the stage of grievances, no one, whether it was the warriors of various sects or his own disciples, was optimistic about him. Ha ha ha. Wei Yinu also went up to the stage of grievances and laughed. "Boy, if you act like a coward, the elder may let you go, but since you are on the stage, be prepared to die." Really? Jun Changxiao disagreed. This kid is so calm. It is necessary to let him know the strength of this elder. Wei Yinu rolled up his sleeves and clenched his fists suddenly. His muscles bulged and blue veins appeared. Elder Wei mainly cultivates the body. He has no martial arts skills. He can smash a boulder weighing more than 2,000 kilograms with one punch. Oh my god. Everyone gasped. A martial artist with the 12th level of Kame can smash a boulder weighing 1,500 kilograms with his own strength. He is already very strong. What's that? A disciple of Linquan Sect said proudly. Our elder Wei once killed a fierce beast comparable to the martial apprentice level in the world with his bare hands. What? Everyone was shocked. A martial apprentice level fierce beast was killed with bare hands with the strength of Kame. It is extremely terrifying. Although the fierce beast he killed was injured, Wei Yunu was very proud when he saw the shock on the faces of the martial artists from various factions. However, when he looked at Jun Changxiao, he found that he was holding up his little finger and picking his nose. The warriors of various sects were stunned. On the sacred and solemn stage of grudges, that guy actually did such an indecent thing in public. What's more exaggerated is that he picked out a large ball of buja and it bounced onto the shoe of the elder of Iron Bone Sect. Wei Yunu seemed to have been greatly humiliated. He roared angrily and swung his right fist with concentrated power. Whoosh! The angry blow was integrated into the 12th stage of cultivation, and suddenly a wave of air was visible to the naked eye. Jun Changxiao put his hands behind his back and looked indifferent. Master. Li Qingyang looked solemn. Lu Qian, who was always cold, also showed a rare worry on her face. It's over. That guy was hit, and he was either dead or injured. Boom. A muffled sound came, and waves of wind and waves whirled up, blowing everyone's hair, sleeves, and clothes. Chapter 19. The Iron Shirt. Swish. Swish. The warriors standing on the grudge stage had their hair flying in disorder due to the air waves, and their faces were full of horror. Elder Wen's punch was terrifying. Even if there was a heavy stone on the stage, it could be smashed to pieces. At that moment, they all secretly judged that the head of the Tigu sect would be in great danger after suffering such an explosive punch. They even looked down at the stage, searching for the body that should have been knocked out. No one. Could it be that the head of Jun was not knocked out, but died directly on the stage? Swish. Swish. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the grudge stage. Sure enough, they caught Jun Changxiao's figure at the first time, but gradually opened their mouths, their eyes flashing with disbelief. Li Qingyang's expression was also sluggish. What did he see that would make him have such an exaggerated expression? Seeing Jun Changxiao standing on the stage, without moving at all, his exposed palms, neck, and even his entire face were all copper yellow, just like a cast bronze statue. Why did his skin color change? Is this a martial art? I've never heard of a martial art that can change skin color. This is not the point. The point is that Elder Wei stood in front of him, with his right fist pressed against Jun Changxiao's chest, and it was clearly and accurately hit. Why didn't he move at all when a force strong enough to crush thousands of pounds of rocks hit him? Why did he keep that nonchalant smile as before? The warriors of various factions were stunned. They had thought of the scene of Jun Changxiao being knocked away and killed, but they had never thought of the scene of him resisting a punch and standing as steady as a rock. Wei Yunu didn't expect that he could not even take a small step back when he condensed his anger and hit him. He still kept bombarding and said in surprise, "What kind of martial arts is this?" Jun Changxiao said lightly, "Golden bell cover iron cloth shirt." Golden bell cover iron cloth shirt. What kind of martial arts is this? Why have I never heard of it? The name is a bit strange. It should not be the martial arts of our Qingyang County. Not only is it not Qingyang County, there is no such martial arts in the entire Xinjiang continent, because it is a kind of kung fu in the Huaxia country on earth. Could it be that Jun Changxiao was a martial artist? He is shit. On earth, he is just an ordinary person. Not to mention knowing kung fu, he lacks exercise for many years. Running around the playground for a few laps can make him tired like a dog. Then this golden bell cover iron cloth shirt. It's a close call. It's a close call. Jun Changxiao stood calmly and secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, there is a talisman for endurance, otherwise I would be seriously injured if I didn't die. It turned out that when Wei Yi was angry, he crushed the talisman for endurance given by the novice gift package in time. At the moment of crushing, Jun Changxiao's skin color changed and his muscles became hard, just like a copper wall and iron wall. At that time, he was also gambling, betting that the elixir with one contribution value would have a heaven-defying effect, and the talisman opened in the novice gift package would definitely not be weak. The bet was right. The talisman of endurance is very strong, super strong, I say. Jun Changxiao said lightly, "Did you not eat? You are so weak when you punch me." The time limit of the talisman of endurance is 60 minutes. Jun Changxiao wants to use the remaining 59 minutes and 30 seconds to show off. Damn it. Wei Yunu retreated dozens of steps in anger, retreated to the edge of the stage, and then sprinted forward. The right fist swung out again, carrying a visible airwave. Here it comes again. Stronger than last time. Master Jun didn't move. Are you going to resist? Are you so confident? Boom. Wei Yunu's powerful lion fist hit Jun Changxiao's abdomen directly, creating a weak energy ripple. What was the result? Master Jun still stood there, motionless. He raised a smile and said, Elder Wei, you should try harder. If you keep hitting me like this, you will only waste my time. AHH. Wei Yunu was going crazy. He didn't care about gathering his strength to speed up, and just punched. Bang, bang, bang. In a short period of time, Jun Changxiao's chest, abdomen, and shoulders were hit several times, but he always stood there with a smile of disapproval on his lips. At that moment, the picture presented to the martial artists of various factions was that sect Master Jun was like a wooden stake, allowing Elder Wei to hit him again and again. Wooden stake? That thing was hit hard, but it still had some reaction. What about Jun Changxiao? He allowed Wei Yunu to keep hitting him, and he was always as solid as a rock. It's not a wooden stake. It's a copper wall. Too terrible. What a powerful defensive martial art. Vajra cover iron cloth shirt. If you encounter it in the future, no matter how much it costs, you must buy it. Everyone yearned for the martial arts that Jun Changxiao casually mentioned. Li Qingyang and Lu Qian breathed a sigh of relief. No wonder the leader dared to accept the challenge of the elders of Iron Bone Sect. It turned out that he had practiced such powerful defensive martial arts. Bang, bang. Wei Yunu threw dozens of punches again, and finally stopped panting. This kind of unrestrained bombardment consumes the most spiritual energy. What's wrong? Jun Changxiao said disdainfully. Are you tired of fighting? But, damn guy. Wei Yunu clenched his fists tightly, his eyes full of bloodshot. Jun Changxiao said lightly, if you don't have the strength, don't challenge me in front of me, otherwise, you will only embarrass yourself in front of the public. Wei Yunu's teeth were trembling with anger. Suddenly, he retracted his fists, stepped back a few steps, supported his face with one hand, and laughed ha ha ha. What's wrong? Is Elder Wei mad? Everyone whispered. Suddenly, Wei Yunu stopped laughing, his face grim, and said, boy, you should feel honored to force me to use my trump card even if you die. Jun Changxiao said, trumpet? Swish. Wei Yunu took 2 steps, slightly bent his legs, put his hands in front of his abdomen, and made a move similar to a horse stance. Hoo-hoo. 2 energy balls emerged strangely, gathered in the palms of both hands, and began to absorb the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth. Oh my god. Seeing this, Jun Changxiao thought to himself, isn't it Kamehameha? Li Qingyang said solemnly, this is the unique martial art of Strongest Sect, called the brilliant golden stone fist. Jun Changxiao almost fell to the ground. It's just a martial art, but it has such a long name. What a talent. And my second disciple, he said it in one breath without pausing. He is also a great talent. Complaints are complaints. Jun Changxiao's face was solemn. After all, the 2 energy balls that gathered spiritual energy, the power emitted, became stronger and stronger. This light. Li Qingyang forgot the name of the martial art, paused for a moment and said, what is the brilliant golden stone fist? It seems to be a common intermediate martial art. Each level of martial arts will be divided into 3 small levels, namely, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Although the 9-style Delang sword is only of the low-grade initial stage, if the 9th style is used, the power level can directly reach the ordinary initial stage. Since the Xinjiang continent has a detailed division of martial arts, it must mean that the higher the quality and level, the stronger the martial arts. No way. Ordinary intermediate martial arts? This is priceless in Xinjiang City. As expected of a disciple from the Strongest Sect, he has practiced such a powerful martial arts. Amid the envy and exclamation of the crowd, Wei Yunu has already accumulated the power of the light something fist to the extreme, and 2 energy balls flashed dazzling light. Whoosh! A violent wind suddenly rose on the stage of grudges. My god. What a strong momentum. Is this an ordinary intermediate martial arts? The warriors of various factions held their breath, their eyes full of horror. Boy, Wei Yinu shouted angrily, die. Jun Changxiao took out a wooden comb, combed his messy hair and said, my hair is messed up, it's very annoying. Plop. All the warriors fell down. Elder Wei revealed his trump card, creating a whistling force. He didn't care about his own safety, but was actually concerned about his hairstyle. Exclamation mark. Chapter 20. Why use knives and guns? The arena for the competition was very sacred, and warriors would be in, or when they stepped on it. However, when Jun Changxiao went up, he first picked his nose, and then combed his hair, which completely overturned their three views. Ah! Wei Yi roared again. Just as he was about to gather the power he had accumulated for a long time and blast it over, he was combing his hair. What is this? This is a naked contempt for himself. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Swish. Wei Yi stepped out, grabbed the condensed energy ball with both fists, and said with a twisted face, die. Hoo-hoo. Both fists blasted together, carrying a cold and fierce momentum. The warriors who were closer to the grudge arena changed their faces and hurriedly stepped back a few steps, fearing that they would be affected by the air wave. It's terrible. This force is at least more than 2,500 pounds. Even a beast comparable to a martial arts apprentice can't bear it. Everyone was shocked. However, when they looked at Jun Changxiao, they found that he had just finished combing his hair and slowly put the wooden comb on his belt. Elder Wei attacked with great momentum, but he remained calm. Brother, you are really steady. Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao raised his hands and greeted the incoming fist head on. Everyone couldn't help but wonder, is sect leader Jun going to take action? Boom. Boom. The boom came, slightly deafening. The warriors of various factions looked at the oncoming airwave, and their eyes almost popped out. On the stage, Jun Changxiao stood in place, raised his hands to catch Wei Yinu's fists, and still had a disapproving smile on his face. No way. Can you take this? Is the quality of his golden bell cover iron cloth shirt martial arts already at the higher level of ordinary products? Everyone was shocked. Wei Yinu maintained his bombardment posture, and said in disbelief, how? How is it possible? He unleashed the brilliant and dazzling golden stone fist, and was ready to go. It was definitely his strongest burst at the moment, and he took it easily again. At that moment, Elder Wei's heart was almost broken. Hey. Jun Chang smiled and said, use whatever moves you have. Hoo-hoo. Wei Yinu breathed quickly, his face grim. Elder Wei is dying. Although high-grade martial arts are powerful, they also consume a lot of spiritual energy. The previous round of bombardment consumed a lot of energy, and now he is using boxing. I'm afraid he is exhausted. Exhausted. Elder Wei stepped back a few steps, lowered his head, and covered his face, and laughed again. Laughing again. Everyone was stunned. Boy. Elder Wei gradually raised his head, raised one hand, and said grimly, do you think I only have martial arts? Hoo-hoo. A big knife appeared out of thin air. Obviously, this is to summon his weapon from the space ring. Boom. The big knife fell to the ground, and the stone slab trembled slightly. This knife is very heavy. Look, the word Fan is engraved on the blade. It is a weapon forged by Master Fan. Everyone exclaimed. Master Fan, the top casting master of Xinjiang continent. He has forged thousands of weapons in his life, and each one is regarded as a treasure by the warriors of the mainland. Swish. Wei Yinu raised the knife horizontally, and while slowly and carefully wiping it with his sleeve, he proudly said, this knife was purchased by Wei at a high price, and I have always regarded it as my life. Today is the first time I show it in front of people. Jun Changxiao pointed at the knife, and said with a smile, there is a gap on the blade, and it is a defective product at a glance. Wei Yi roared, Master Fan's weapons, even if they have flaws, are extremely precious. Don't use the word defective product to humiliate him. Jun Changxiao was speechless. He was telling the truth, so why was he so angry? He didn't understand that in the Xinjiang continent, weapons are very important to warriors, and Master Fan's weapons are especially precious, and they cannot tolerate any denial. Boy, Wei Yinu said with a cold look, today, I will use your blood to open the ring for my golden dragon sword. Oh. Jun Changxiao said, while picking his nose. Wei Yinu's self-esteem was severely whipped again. He tightly grasped the golden dragon sword and uttered a low voice, this is intolerable. This is intolerable. Whoosh. Strong spiritual power diffused out, lingering on the golden dragon sword, and instantly burst out with a heavy breath. Elder Wenny is going to take action. This sword must be of ordinary grade. It should be easy to kill the martial arts apprentices. After integrating the martial arts spirit power, Master Jun is in danger. Swish. Wei Yinu pointed his sword at Jun Changxiao and said coldly, "Show your weapon." Weapon against weapon is the rule on the fighting stage. If you rely on your own weapons to bully an unarmed person, you will be laughed at and despised by your peers. It's just a small festival. Jun Changxiao said, "Just solve it with fists, why bother with knives and guns?" Everyone's mouth twitched. Sect leader Jun, I just can't beat you with my fists, so I resorted to swords and guns. Stop talking nonsense. Wei Yinu almost roared, "Show your weapons, fight me to the death." He was angry and aggrieved. He wanted to kill the leader of the Tigu sect with a sword, to release his anger and resentment. Okay. Jun Changxiao raised his hand. Clang. Liu Qian drew his sword. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "I have a sword." "Have a sword?" Liu Qian was stunned. Swish. A sword appeared out of thin air under Jun Changxiao's palm. The scabbard was inlaid with 2 beads, which emitted a dazzling blue light under the sunlight. Liu Qian said solemnly, "This sword is extraordinary." TSK. Wei Yinu said disdainfully, "The sword is a weapon to kill the enemy, and the scabbard inlaid with gems is nothing more than a decoration." The warriors of various sects agreed deeply. The sword is sharp, and no matter how well the scabbard is decorated, it is just used by literati to pretend to be elegant. You showed your weapon, and I'll draw my sword. Wei Yinu held the hilt of the sword with both hands, poured the last of his spiritual energy into the blade, and immediately stimulated a heavier breath. Desert sword technique. He shouted coldly. His arms were bulging with blue veins, and the golden dragon sword was raised high, and suddenly slashed at Jun Changxiao. The warriors of various factions opened their mouths, because in their field of vision, a sword energy about 2 meters long shot out close to the ground. Ka. Wherever it passed, the stone slab showed dents. Hiss. Everyone gasped. Elder Wenny not only has the sword forged by Master Fan, but also has a special sword technique. The power of this blow is likely to crush the martial artist directly. The next second, everyone looked at Jun Changxiao. How should he face such a strong sword? Or continue to resist with the golden bell cover iron cloth shirt? Clang. Jun Changxiao held the hilt of the sword and quickly drew the sword out. Swish. 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 The first, second, third of the 9-style Dilang sword. In the blink of an eye, 8 styles were swung out in succession, and the 9th style was slashed out in the layers of waves. Whoosh. The 8 layers of waves gathered together and turned into a stream of sword energy that flew away. From unsheathing to drawing the sword, the whole process was extremely fast. When everyone caught the condensed sword energy, they had already met the heavy sword energy. Bang! The sword energy was directly chopped into pieces. The sword energy continued to be powerful and rushed towards Wei Yinu. The warriors of various factions were stunned. Not good. Wei Yinu looked horrified and subconsciously held the golden dragon sword horizontally in front of him. Bang! The sword energy slashed on the blade, and a golden sound came. Catcher. Then, the ordinary golden dragon sword cast by Master Fan suddenly shattered in front of everyone. And when the broken blade flew past him, Wei Yinu was already stunned. The sword energy, that was still powerful, slashed down fiercely, slashing his shoulder, and his entire right arm flew out and landed on a stone slab 3 meters away. The hand that was separated from the body naturally loosened, and the golden dragon sword with only the handle left rolled down. Ah! A painful scream came from the stage of grudges. Chapter 21. I don't want to be single, I want to show my affection. Ding. The side quest is completed, and the host gets 20 contribution points. Ding. School contribution value 117 hundredths. School contribution value overflows, and the host must consume it within 24 hours. Otherwise the overflow contribution value will be automatically deducted. When Wei Yinu was in agony, Jun Changxiao heard the ding-dong reminder of the task completion. It is indeed an elite task. After completion, 20 contribution points were given. Jun Changxiao was overjoyed, but when he saw the bloody arm on the stage, he almost couldn't help vomiting. He had never slaughtered chickens since he was a child, and it was normal for him to suddenly cut off a person's arm and find it difficult to adapt. He wanted to kill me, and I crippled him. There's nothing wrong with that. Jun Changxiao gave reason to comfort himself, and his mood gradually relaxed. In this cruel world, you must fight back against those who want to kill you with cold and harsh means, otherwise you will die sooner or later. People should have principles, and my principle is, I won't offend others if they don't offend me. If someone offends me, I will offend him. Clang. Jun Changxiao sheathed his sword and bowed, saying, Elder Wei, I'm grateful. Swish. He jumped off the stage of grudges. Let's go. Yes. Li Qingyang, Lu Qian and others followed Jun Changxiao and gradually disappeared in the martial arts arena. How is it possible? Master Jun actually defeated Elder Wei, who has opened his meridians for the 12th time. The warriors of various sects came back to their senses from their shock. It was unimaginable for them to smash Master Fan's ordinary weapon and cut off one of Elder Wei's arms. The deacon of the Long Knife sect and the disciples of the Tiger Ore sect felt a chill on their backs and secretly thanked themselves for not challenging him in a fit of anger, otherwise it would have been a tragedy. A warrior said solemnly, Master Jun's sword has probably reached the high level of ordinary products. This statement was agreed by everyone. They found it hard to believe that Jun Changxiao could severely injure Wei Yixiao. The only explanation was that the sword was of extremely high quality. Yes. The severe injury to Wei Yixiao came from the first grade cold front sword. Jun Changxiao, who was walking on the street, was also secretly amazed. I didn't expect that the first grade swords in the beginner model are so powerful. At first, he thought it should be stronger than the Golden Dragon sword, but after using it, he realized that he had underestimated it. Qian. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, is my sword good? It's okay. It's so powerful, but it's just okay. What kind of sword can catch her eye? Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I have a spare in my ring. How about giving you one? After completing the elite task, the contribution value exceeded the upper limit, so when leaving the martial arts field, he exchanged 2 more first grade cold front swords. Such a powerful weapon, I can only use one, and the others can be given to disciples. The reason why I want to give it to Lu Qian first is that I'm the eldest disciple first, and secondly, I hope to gain her favor and stop mocking me as the head in the future. No, Lu Qian said lightly. Such a high quality sword, but I don't want it. There must be something wrong with my brain. Okay. Jun Changxiao didn't force it. Master, Li Qingyang said, senior sister doesn't want it, I want it. Although he had a common weapon of the first level, it was still far from the master's sword. Jun Changxiao said, go back to the sect and behave well, and you will have everything. The implication was that he was not going to give it to Li Qingyang. It was not a distinction, but mainly because the second disciple had just joined the sect and had no performance or contribution. It was inappropriate to give him a sword directly. Jun Changxiao didn't want his sect to become a charity. Understood. Li Qingyang said, the disciple will behave well and get the master's recognition. Yes. Jun Changxiao nodded, looked at the disciples behind him and said, once you go to the sect, it will be difficult to see your parents again. Go home and spend more time with them. You can report to the sect by yourself after 10 days. This master is quite humane. Thank you, master. The disciples left one after another, but Li Qingyang stood there. Jun Chang smiled and said, why don't you go back? Li Qingyang shook his head and said, the sect leader has instructed my father that he should go into seclusion now. There is no point in going back. Jun Chang smiled and said, then come with me back to the sect first. Sect leader. Li Qingyang bowed and said, disciple has a request. Tell me. Jun Chang smiled. Li Qingyang was silent for a moment and said, disciple wants to bring someone to the sect. Who? The one I love deeply. A woman. Isn't this nonsense? Not loving a woman, but loving a man? Although Li Qingyang was speechless, he still nodded and said, yes, a woman of poor origin and mediocre talent. Poor origin? Mediocre talent? Is such a woman worthy of the first genius of Qingyang City? Jun Changxiao seemed to understand something and said, so, this is another reason why you joined Mighty Go's Heng Sect? Yes. Li Qingyang did not deny it. Jun Changxiao held his chin and thought deeply, and said, the sect has just started, and there is a lack of manpower to take care of miscellaneous matters, so let her go with us. Thank you, Master. Li Qingyang said gratefully. He could have joined the Kangshan sect, but he refused, because he knew that such a large sect would not accommodate his woman. Joining the Tegu sect, first, the excellent elixir made him think he had potential, and second, the lowest level 9th rate sect should not care about bringing outsiders to the mountain. But, Jun Changxiao leaned over and whispered, isn't it too early for you to fall in love at the age of 16? Li Qingyang said, Master, my cousins who are half a year younger than me have all married and had children. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. Getting married is understandable, but having children is a bit ridiculous, right? Li Qingyang was surprised and said, Master, don't you know that in Xinjiang continent, you can marry and have children after the 14-year-old adult ceremony? Ahem. Jun Changxiao said with his hands behind his back, of course I know. In his heart, he thought bitterly, I'm going to start a family at the age of 14. In 2 months, I will be 18 in this body. Isn't that a senior single dog? I don't want to be a single dog, I want to show my love. Master, I'll bring her over. Well, go ahead. Li Qingyang left, and soon came back alone, holding a letter in his hand. Where is she? Jun Changxiao asked. Li Qingyang lowered his head and said painfully, she didn't want to delay my future, so she left a letter and left. Jun Chang smiled and said, if the girl is really as you said, born in poverty and mediocre, leaving quietly is the best outcome for you and her. Master. Li Qingyang raised his head and said, do you also think that she is not worthy of me? Jun Chang smiled and said, it's not me who thinks, it's others who think so. Li Qingyang tightly grasped the letter and said, when I become a strong man, no matter where I am, I will find her, and then tell her loudly in front of everyone in the world that only I, Li Qingyang, can be worthy of you, not you, Li Qingyang. Good. Jun Chang smiled and applauded. His former world paid attention to matching, and the Xinjiang continent, which respected martial arts, must be more than enough. Li Qingyang was talented, but he didn't care about the girl's humble status and the secular perspective. This alone was precious. Lu Qian said inappropriately, another idiot. Jun Chang smiled and was speechless. It turns out that this woman not only attacks herself, but also attacks her fellow apprentices. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Qualification Transformation Liquid. What? Li Qingyang joined the Tegu sect? What? The leader of the Tegu sect gave the elders of the Kangshan sect some pointers, and he was so grateful? What? The elder of the Linquan sect had one arm chopped off by that guy? The warriors who had not witnessed the incident had the same expression after hearing about it from others. All of them were confused. It has to be said, any of the 3 things Jun Changxiao did in the martial arts arena was very sensational. When he happily left with Lu Qian and Li Qingyang, the city exploded in just half a day, and everyone was vying to talk about it. Impossible. How can that trash sect have such a fierce leader? Is it a rumor? It's not a rumor, it's true. I saw it with my own eyes in the martial arts arena. This is incredible. The Iron Sect cut off Elder Wen's arm, which means he has completely offended Linquan Sect. Linquan Sect is not easy to mess with. In my opinion, it won't be long before they will bring people to Qingyang village to cause trouble for Tegu sect. Jun Changxiao is also worried about what everyone is worried about. However, thinking that he still has 97 contribution points and can exchange for more goods, he said fearlessly, as long as the people from Linquan sect dare to come, I will let them go back lying down. What is the purpose of traveling through another world? Isn't it just to become stronger and to show off? Being bullied? Being bullied at the doorstep? Uncle can't stand this kind of thing, and aunt can't stand it either. The great leader Jun is now looking forward to Linquan sect coming to trouble him, so that he can better enhance the prestige of the sect and let the world know, my Tegu sect, you can't afford to offend. The two dilapidated wooden doors made a creaking sound after a gust of wind blew, as if they were about to fall off at any time. Li Qingyang stood 10 meters outside the door, looked at the dilapidated building, and then looked at the plaque of Iron Bone Sect hanging on the door. He twitched his mouth and said, "Master, is it too late for me to quit the sect now?" "Too late," Jun Changxiao said bitterly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is my Iron Bone Sect. In 100 years, it has been developed into the strongest sect, and it has to recruit 100,000 disciples. It is simply hell mode. Hey, hey." A 3-year-old child with bare bottoms came hopping and stopped at the corner of the door, holding his little ding-ding and diligently fertilizing the weeds. Jun Changxiao drew his sword and roared, "Little brat, dare to pee in front of my Tegu sect, I will cut off your little dick." "Master, calm down. Master, calm down." Li Qingyang hurriedly dragged him, fearing that he would do something irrational. Woo wow wow. The 3-year-old child was frightened and cried, twisting his butt and running away, still shouting in grievance, "Mom, Gao Sheng bullied me." Jun Changxiao roared, "Little brat, if you call me Gao Sheng again, believe it or not, I will kill you now." "Master, calm down. Master, calm down." Li Qingyang dragged him desperately. Jun Changxiao took a deep breath, stabilized his emotions and said, "As the leader of a sect, how can I be as lenient as a 3-year-old child?" Swish. He waved his sleeves and said, let's go in." Plop. As soon as he reached the door, the plaque hanging on it was blown down by the wind and hit him directly on the forehead, and the whole person fell to the ground with his legs up in the air. Li Qingyang. "Lu Qian. I'm going to smash it." "Master, calm down. Master, calm down. This is the plaque of our Iron Bone Sect. Since our Iron Bone Sect wants to develop, we must first clean up the sect inside and out, and replace all these broken doors, broken windows and so on." Sitting at the first seat in the sect's hall, Jun Changxiao said in a deep tone, "This trip to Qingyang City made his pockets richer, and the first thing to do was to rebuild the sect. It can't be magnificent, but at least it has to look pleasing to the eye." "Master," Li Qingyang reminded in a low voice, "your head is still bleeding." It's okay. Jun Changxiao patted the wound hit by the plaque with one hand and said, "These things are left to you, and you must complete them seriously." "Yes," Li Qingyang said. "Okay." Jun Changxiao handed him a few silver bills, stood up staggeringly and said, "I feel a little dizzy. I'm going to go back and rest first." The Tegu sect was built on a barren mountain near Qingyang village. Because of the death of sect leader Wang, few villagers have come here anymore. But in the past few days, the villagers found that a large number of carpenters and bricklayers from Qingyang town went up the mountain, and various building materials were also transported up one after another. The Tegu sect is going to be renovated? Is that stinky boy Gao Sheng rich? Impossible. He went to Aunt Wang's house to beg for food some time ago. How could he have money? Let's go up and take a look. The villagers went up the mountain in groups of 3 or 5, but were blocked by Lu Qian at the mountain pass. "Our sect is being renovated. Non-disciples of our sect are not allowed to enter without permission." "Girl." A villager laughed and said, "We are from the mountain, and we are like dogs." Clang. Lu Qian drew her sword and said coldly, "The headmaster has ordered that anyone who dares to call his nickname will be killed without mercy." Swish. At that moment, the villagers of Qingyang village turned into martial arts masters and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lu Qian sheathed her sword and whispered, "The name Gao Sheng is much better than Jun Changxiao. Why is the headmaster so resistant?" The renovation of the sect was handled by Li Qingyang. The headmaster Jun sat cross-legged in the room and thought, "It is full, but we need disciples to do sect tasks to improve the construction of the sect." Swish. He opened the system panel again and found that the sect tasks still showed no, so he asked in confusion, "System, when will there be sect tasks?" The system said, "Wait." Jun Changxiao was speechless and clicked on them all to see if there was anything he needed. With martial arts and weapons, he really didn't have any needs for the time being. No. Lack of realm. Jun Changxiao didn't think that with the 5th stage of Kame cultivation, he could continue to wander around the Xingyu continent. The most urgent task was to improve his realm first. "Is there an experience symbol?" He began to look for it, but he couldn't find it even at the bottom. Jun Changxiao lay on the bed, covering his head that was still bleeding, and said, "Could it be that I have to rely on meditation and enlightenment like the warriors here to improve my realm? It's not impossible, but it's slow. After all, this body has average qualifications, and no advanced mental methods. If you practice in the normal way, breaking through the martial arts must be a living series." "That's right." Jun Changxiao slapped his forehead, blood spurted out, and said, "You can transform your qualifications." Swish. Open the system panel again, enter the primary mall, and keep scrolling down, and soon lock on the item, called Qualification Transformation Liquid. Click on the detailed introduction. Item, Qualification Transformation Fluid. Effects, can transform your own qualifications, and improve one level on the original basis. Note, only for low quality qualifications. Time limit, lifelong. Price, 50 contribution points. 50 points. Jun Changxiao retreated, and saw that the price was indeed 50 contribution points. He collapsed and said, "Is the item for transforming qualifications so expensive?" Yes. The level of qualifications determines the speed of martial artists' cultivation and the upper limit of their realm. It is understandable that it is a bit expensive. Without hesitation, he chose to buy. Ding. The host consumed 50 contribution points and obtained qualification transformation fluid X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. School contribution value 4700ths. Chapter 23. Open 5 meridians in succession. A bottle of qualification transformation liquid costs 50 contribution points, which makes Jun Changxiao feel painful, but when he thinks about it, he can improve his qualifications, so he comforts himself. Not a loss. He took out the small medicine bottle containing qualification transformation liquid from the space ring. Pop. Open the bottle stopper, and wisps of red breath drifted out. Jun Changxiao sniffed it, and felt a little choked. He couldn't help but worry, "Isn't this thing poisonous? I don't care about that. Drink it first." Sect Master Jun tilted his head resolutely, and the red juice in the medicine bottle melted into his mouth, and then flowed into his body. It was a bit bitter, and there was also a little malt flavor. "Come on." Jun Changxiao sat up with a solemn look. "What for?" "Prepare for the pain that may occur at any time when the medicine juice merges into the body." In Jun Changxiao's view, this kind of item that changes qualifications is equivalent to washing the marrow and cutting the bones, and it must bear equal risks. As expected, the medicine juice spread in the body, and a gurgling breath burst out instantly. Jun Changxiao clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with determination, and said, "No matter how unbearable the pain is, I can resist it with great willpower." Ding. The host is using qualification transformation liquid X1 and is transforming the spiritual root qualifications. The spiritual root qualifications are transformed. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. He was ready to face the pain, but the transformation was completed so quickly. It was too simple and too casual. The next second, Jun Changxiao noticed that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth floating in the air was very friendly to him. The higher the qualifications, the better it fits with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For a superior qualification like Li Qingyang, as long as he circulates his mind method, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth will rush up and scramble to be absorbed. Jun Changxiao can't do it. He had just circulated his mind method to try to practice, but the spiritual energy was indifferent one by one. What about now? The attitude has changed significantly. Jun Changxiao couldn't help but say with joy, "The stuff exchanged for 50 points is still worth it." Ding. Congratulations to the host. The spiritual root qualification has been upgraded from low grade to ordinary. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "Sure enough, the qualification of my body was the worst low grade before. No wonder even the spiritual energy is indifferent." He spread his arms, took a deep breath, and the whole person suddenly felt refreshed. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the 6th stage of opening the meridians. Ding. The host successfully broke through to the 7th stage of opening the meridians. Hearing the wonderful prompt sound in his ears, Jun Changxiao said in a daze, 2 meridians were opened in one breath. The system explained, the improvement of the host's qualifications will lead to the improvement of basic cultivation. I see. Jun Changxiao roughly understood. He was promoted from a low grade to an ordinary grade and forced to open 2 meridians, which is a benefit given to him. If he is promoted from an ordinary grade to a medium grade, it should be further improved. What should I do after the spiritual root qualification is improved? Of course, practice. While the second disciple was busy repairing the sect, the head of the sect, Jun, began to practice in seclusion without going out of the main gate or the second gate. This Jingxinju should be a mortal level mental method, which can be used for practice. Jingxinju was the mental method that the elders of Strongest Sect asked for advice. Jun Changxiao relied on the insight talisman to not only remember it, but also comprehend it to the 4th level. He sat down cross-legged and circulated the mental method. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the room was drawn in and rushed into the body. After the spiritual energy was integrated, it followed the fixed route of the meridians and gathered in the danshan. Under the refinement of the Jingxinju, it formed an energy ball the size of a fingernail. In the memory accepted by Jun Changxiao, this is called spiritual energy. When the spiritual energy in the danshan reaches a certain intensity, it can be used to open some block meridians in the body, thereby achieving a realm breakthrough. Continue. Jun Changxiao threw away distracting thoughts and continued to circulate the mental method. However, after a night of hard work, the energy ball in the danshan was only slightly improved. He couldn't help but say in disappointment, it may take several months to reach the standard of Changmei. Several months is also the result of the Jingxinju. If it were the lowest level of mental method, plus the lowest level of spiritual roots before, it would be very good to be able to condense enough spiritual energy to Changmei in a year. Too slow. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. System, is there any way to open the meridians quickly? Yes. The system said. Jun Changxiao was overjoyed and said, what method? The system said, click on the sect contribution value. Jun Changxiao was startled, then pulled out the system panel, clicked on the sect contribution value, and a new small panel popped up immediately. It only said, contribution value exchange for cultivation value. Oh my god. Jun Changxiao said happily, it turns out that there is a button for contribution value, and there is also a function to exchange for cultivation value. The system reminded, although this function of exchanging cultivation value is convenient, it will instantly consume all the host's contribution values. Please consider it carefully before making a decision. Really? Jun Changxiao held his chin and thought seriously. If I exchange all my contribution values and only upgrade 1 level, it will definitely be a big loss. No. After thinking for a while, Jun Changxiao said seriously, the current cultivation is too low. The most urgent task is to improve the martial arts realm as soon as possible. What's more, during his research during this period, he found that, except for a few talismans and weapons, other primary items are not only expensive, but also require certain hard conditions. For example, the 9-layer collapse fist in the mall only requires 10 contribution points, but it is marked in the detailed introduction that one must have the 10th level of Kame to practice it. Jun Changxiao exhaled and said, if the contribution points are gone, I can earn them again. If my cultivation level cannot be improved, how can I survive in the falling star continent? Swish. While speaking, he resolutely clicked the exchange button on the panel. Ding. Sect contribution value. 0 hundredths. The original 47 contribution points were instantly reset to 0, which made Jun Changxiao feel extremely painful. After all, that was what he had worked hard to earn in Qingyang City. Ding. The host has successfully broken through to the 8th level of Kame. Ding. The host has successfully broken through to the 9th level of Kame. Ding. The host has successfully broken through to the 10th level of Kame. A series of prompt sounds rang out, and Jun Changxiao clearly felt that a stream of powerful spiritual energy was condensed in his body, and with a great momentum, he opened all 3 main veins. Oh my god. He was surprised and said, I actually opened 3 veins in a row. 47 experience points to open 3 veins was still acceptable to Jun Changxiao. The system said, the host's cultivation is low now. If you use contribution points to exchange, you can achieve continuous breakthroughs. It will naturally not be cost effective to exchange them after the realm level is higher. Jun Changxiao ignored it, clenched his fists, and 10 dazzling lights appeared on his left and right wrists. He grinned and said, "The feeling of becoming stronger is great." Bang! A punch was thrown, and the house collapsed. The head of the Jun family was directly buried in it by the collapsed bricks and tiles. The next day, Li Qingyang stood in front of the ruins and said solemnly, "Head, you punched, at least 200 teals are needed to rebuild." Jun Changxiao, who was covered in dust, rolled his eyes when he heard it. Chapter 24, The Reconstructed Tegu Sect. 97 contribution points were squandered by Jun Changxiao overnight. There was no other way. If you want to become stronger in this world, you must pay. Next, wait for the sect mission to appear. Earn achievement points to improve the construction of the sect. Jun Changxiao murmured. There are no side missions, and he doesn't know what the hidden missions are. Now he can only rely on improving the construction of the sect to expand the upper limit of members and obtain contribution points. Master, Li Qingyang came over and said, "No money. No money again." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. This guy comes to ask for money every day, and he doesn't know how to save money at all. Li Qingyang said, "Master, the sect is too dilapidated. Renovation is equivalent to reconstruction, so it costs more money." Okay. Jun Changxiao threw him a few more silver notes and said, "There are 3 days left, and your junior brothers will come to report. Can you complete it again?" Li Qingyang said, "It should be no problem." Okay. Jun Changxiao waved his hand and said, "Go and get busy." Li Qingyang said goodbye and left, while he sat cross-legged in the courtyard and began to practice the Jingxinju. Without contribution points, he could only practice traditional cultivation. However, after a day, the speed at which the spiritual energy condensed in the danshan was very slow, which made Jun Changxiao realize that the higher the realm, the harder it would be to open the meridians. Oh. He sighed. It would be great if there were endless contribution points. The next day, Jun Changxiao stopped practicing and got up and walked out of the inner courtyard to the outer courtyard. During this period, he had been practicing, and he didn't ask about the renovation of the sect except for the daily money. The Tigos sect covers an area of about 100 acres and is divided into the inner courtyard and the outer courtyard. The inner courtyard is where the disciples of the head live, and the outer courtyard is where martial arts are practiced. When Jun Changxiao walked through the cobblestone path and entered the outer courtyard, his expression suddenly froze. In front of him, the hall that was supposed to be abandoned was not only brand new, but also had red roofs and green tiles, and even the stone stairs were carved with jade railings. The pillars used to support the main beams were painted, and lifelike birds and beasts were carved on them. There are also many attic buildings on both sides of the outer courtyard, which looks very magnificent. There is a large martial arts field in the area between the main hall and the gate, which is paved with bluestone slabs. You can tell at a glance that the materials are very high-end. What's more, in the vacant space in the outer courtyard, there are not only ponds and rockery, but also pavilions for rest and sightseeing. The small place is designed so reasonably, I'm afraid only a master of architecture can do it. Is this my sect? Jun Changxiao stood there, with an illusion, as if in a dream. He even secretly wondered if he had traveled through time again, to the inner courtyard of the imperial palace of a certain dynasty. It's not a dream, it's real. Because Li Qingyang walked out of the main hall, came to him and said, "Master, are you satisfied with the renovation of the outer courtyard?" "This is not a renovation, this is simply a reconstruction." "Satisfied?" Jun Chang smiled and said, "Very satisfied." As he said that, he got up and went to the main hall. He was shocked again as soon as he entered, because the ground was also paved with neat stone slabs, and there were large mahogany chairs on both sides, which was extremely luxurious. "Master." Li Qingyang pointed to the chair in the upper seat, which was very imposing, and said, "Your throne is made of 1,000-year-old Nanmu wood." "Really?" Jun Changxiao sat on it, and immediately felt that it was much more comfortable than the creaking broken chair before. He naturally put his arms on the armrests and said with great satisfaction, "Not bad, not bad. This is what a sect should look like." Master. Jun Changxiao handed over an account book and said, "This is the detailed list of silver spent on the renovation. Please take a look." As expected of a noble family, all the silver spent on the renovation was recorded in a strict manner, so that there was an account to check. King Guiyang. Jun Changxiao took the account book, flipped through it casually, and praised, "Your performance makes this seat very satisfied." The voice stopped abruptly, because, turning to the last page of the account book, it was clearly seen that the total amount of consumption recorded on it was 4,650 taels. Jun Changxiao almost jumped up and said, "So much money has been spent." As he said that, he hurriedly looked inside the space ring and found that there were only 300 taels of silver notes left in it. The headmaster Jun has been busy practicing these days. He gave money every time Li King Guiyang came to ask for it, and he didn't care how much he gave or how much was left. The contribution points were all used up, and there was not much money left. This made Jun Changxiao howl in his heart. How can I live in the future? Headmaster. Li King Guiyang said, "Disciple plans to renovate the inner courtyard. It will probably cost 4,000 taels." Puff. Jun Changxiao collapsed on the Nanmu chair, spitting white foam. Money is a good thing. It's good to spend it, wherever it is spent. Under Li King Guiyang's generous renovation, the dilapidated Strongest Sect has been completely renewed, and has the appearance of a sect. But every time he thought of the more than 4,000 taels of silver notes that were lost, Sect Master Jun had the urge to hug the pillar and cry. He didn't really care about money, but tomorrow the disciples would report. Wouldn't so many people have to eat, drink, defecate and urinate? Wouldn't everyone have 2 sets of sect uniforms? What could he do with the remaining hundreds of taels? Sitting on the carved jade stone steps, Jun Changxiao was not only worried about how to get contribution points, but also how to make money to support the sect's daily expenses. Kian. He asked for help. "Is there any way to make money quickly?" "Go robbing." Lu Kian said lightly, "Make money quickly." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly and said, "Mighty Strongest Sect is at least a famous and upright sect. How could we do such despicable things that are despised by people in the martial arts world?" Lu Kian said, "Then sell the sword." This. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, "It can be a good emergency plan. Master." Just at this time, Li King Guiyang walked in from outside and said, "The junior brothers are here. Let them come in." Jun Changxiao stood up, patted the dust on his buttocks, and showed the majesty that a master should have. After a while, more than 20 disciples entered the sect one after another. They stood in the martial arts field, looking at the magnificent buildings around them, all with a look of surprise. Unexpectedly, our sect is so high-end and majestic. How can it not be high-end and majestic to spend thousands of taels of silver notes? Why are there so few people? Jun Changxiao frowned and asked, "Where are the other disciples?" "Master," a disciple said respectfully, "some of our brothers and sisters live in remote mountain villages. It takes some time for them to get here." "I see." Jun Changxiao understood and said, "King Guiyang, give them a place to stay." "Yes." Li King Guiyang received the order and was about to lead his brothers to the inner courtyard, but heard a weak shout from outside the door. "Master, master." Jun Changxiao frowned and hurriedly walked out. Li King Guiyang and Lu Kian followed. As soon as the 3 of them arrived in front of the gate, they saw a young man lying on the floor covered in blood. "Junior brother son." Li King Guiyang squatted down hurriedly, put one hand on his pulse, and checked his brother's injuries. The wounded disciple injured the pain and said weakly, "Master, master." A group of more than 30 disciples were ambushed by bandits on the road, and the junior brothers were kidnapped. He closed his eyes before he finished speaking, and the blood-stained letter in his hand fell to the ground. Li King Guiyang said, "Master, the junior brother just fainted. He is fine." Jun Changxiao picked up the letter, opened it, and saw a line of crooked words written on it, which read, "Prepare money to redeem the people in Black Mountain within 3 days, otherwise they will be killed." Damn it. Jun Changxiao held the letter angrily and said sternly, "You dare to rob my disciples of the Strongest Sect. You are tired of living. Requesting votes and rewards." Chapter 25 Blood splatters 3 feet. There is a notorious mountain in King Guiyang County, called Black Mountain. Bandits have been entrenched here all year round, and they come down from time to rob, and rob to show their presence. After half a month, they took action again. The presence they showed was that they kidnapped more than 30 disciples of the Tegu sect and left letters asking for money. Other bandit gangs usually rob people on the road, stealing money and things. This kind of kidnapping and blatantly asking for ransom is quite thoughtful. Damn it. Jun Changxiao walked out of the door with murderous intent and said, "Dare to bully the people of my Strongest Sect. No matter you are a bandit or a robber, kill them all." It was not easy to recruit 100 disciples, but more than 30 were kidnapped. This is intolerable. The murderous aura and such cruel words are enough to prove that Jun Changxiao has completely adapted to his new identity and the cruel Xingyu continent. "Master." Li Qingyang chased out and said, "Disciple will go with you." As the second senior brother of the Strongest Sect, he could not remain indifferent when his junior brother was kidnapped by bandits. Lu Kai and Qian also followed out. Jun Changxiao stopped and said, "There are still disciples who have not reported in. You two stay in the sect to take care of it. You don't have to go to Black Mountain with me." Li Qingyang said solemnly, "Master, there are at least 200 bandits on Black Mountain. It is said that the leader has become a martial artist. If you go alone, I'm afraid." Jun Changxiao said in a deep voice, "This is an order." At that moment, he was quite majestic as a leader of a sect. Although he wanted to continue to dissuade him, Li Qingyang could only bow and say, "I will follow the order of the master." Jun Changxiao walked down the mountain, his eyes still cold and fierce. Angry. He was serious. Senior sister. Watching Jun Changxiao's figure going down the mountain, Li Qingyang couldn't help but worry. "Master, what should happen to us? What should we do in the future?" "It's very simple." Lu Kai and Qian leaned against the door, crossed her arms and said, "I will be the master, and you will be the eldest disciple." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched when he heard this. Black Mountain. Located 50 miles away from Qingyang village. There are mountains and cliffs here, and the terrain is very dangerous. It is precisely because of the complex terrain that the bandits are fearless and will go down the mountain to do whatever they want. The government and many sects have repeatedly come to suppress the bandits, but Black Mountain is easy to defend and difficult to attack, and they always return in defeat. Over time, Black Mountain was regarded as a forbidden area by the warriors of Qingyang County, and no one dared to set foot in it. Today, on the winding mountain road, Jun Changxiao climbed up the stairs step by step. If any warrior knew that the leader of the Tegu sect went up the Black Mountain alone, he would definitely bow and say, "I respect you as a man." How to deal with that group of bandits and rescue the disciples? Jun Changxiao muttered as he walked. Angry or furious, he finally began to think seriously about how to deal with the bandits next. From Li Qingyang, he learned that there were not only 200 people on the mountain, but there was also a martial arts apprentice, which was more difficult. With the first grade hand feng sword, the 9-style Dilang sword, and 10 of the 12 meridians opened, Jun Changxiao's current strength can deal with more than 20 people with 4 or 5 meridians, but it would be very difficult to deal with more than 200 people. What's more, if there is really a martial arts apprentice, this trip is easy to go up, but difficult to come down. Jun Changxiao's thoughts merged into the space ring. He looked at the galloping talisman and the escape talisman given by the novice gift pack, and thought to himself, these two talismans are not suitable for fighting. Just at this moment, his eyes swept over the difficult sword. Seeing this thing, he was angry. After all, a casual word was sent to him as a first wish. Jun Changxiao weighed the difficult sword, and found it was quite heavy. He murmured, "What quality is it?" He unconsciously held the handle and gently pulled it out of the sheath. Bang! A loud bang came. Jun Changxiao was blown away dozens of meters. Outside, his body unconsciously retreated several steps, and he almost fell down without standing firmly. Jun Changxiao said with lingering fear, "It was a close call, a close call." When he drew the sword just now, a violent aura suddenly emerged between the handle and the sheath. If he hadn't reacted quickly and threw the sword, he would have been injured by the explosion. The system voice sounded, "The seal of the sword must be removed before it can be used. Forcibly pulling the sword out of the sheath will only hurt yourself." Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, "Why didn't you say it earlier?" The system said, "You didn't ask." Jun Changxiao was speechless. After calming down, he said happily, "The burst of breath is so terrifying. The quality of the sword must be very high. Maybe it can help me save my disciples." In an instant, the confidence of the head of Junda increased greatly. Suddenly, he stopped. Two burly men, each holding a weapon, stood on the stone steps in front, with malicious smiles on their mouths. Sixth brother. The shorter and stronger man laughed and said, "Am I seeing things? Someone actually dared to go up to Black Mountain?" The man called sixth brother glanced at Jun Changxiao and said indifferently, "He looks so weak and fragile. He must be a scholar who came here to travel." Swish. The shorter man jumped down, shook the buggering knife in his hand, and said grimly, "Boy, do you know that you have entered a den of thieves?" Jun Changxiao said calmly, "I know." The shorter man was startled, grinned, and said, "You dare to come up, even though you know this? Have you had enough of hanging yourself?" Jun Changxiao said, "Are you a bandit?" The shorter man carried the buggering knife on his shoulder and said proudly, "Yes, I'm a bandit on the Black Mountain, nicknamed the Iron Knife Bully." Jun Changxiao shook his head. "Or thief has such a strong sense of superiority, it's really a decline of morals." The bandit called sixth brother said impatiently, "Seventh brother, don't waste time with him, deal with it quickly." "Okay." The Iron Knife Bully changed his face and said, "Boy, do you want to hand over the valuables on your body, or let me, the seventh master, search for them?" "Search." Jun Changxiao said. The Iron Blade Tyrant smiled coldly and said, "If I search you, I will cut you into pieces." Jun Changxiao said, "What if you hand it over?" The Iron Blade Tyrant said proudly, "You can leave a whole body." Jun Changxiao touched his nose and said, "You mean, no matter what choice I make, I can't escape death?" Ha ha ha. The Iron Blade Tyrant laughed and said, "Boy, from the moment you stepped into the Black Mountain, you are destined to die, not live." Pachi. Jun Changxiao summoned a cold sword and stabbed it directly into his chest. He suppressed his voice and said, "I'm sorry, I haven't lived enough, so you have to die first." The Iron Blade Tyrant was startled, and then his face was ferocious, and intense pain spread in his body. Pachi. Jun Changxiao drew his sword. The Iron Blade Tyrant immediately fell down and rolled down, leaving long blood stains on the stone steps. Seventh brother. The bandit called sixth brother drew his sword angrily. Swish. At this moment, the cold sword was already on his neck. Jun Changxiao looked at him coldly and said, "Answer me, did you rob the disciples of the Strongest Sect?" Gudu. The bandit called Liu swallowed his saliva and said in horror, "Yes." Pachi. A sword passed, and blood splattered 3 feet. The bandit desperately covered his bloody neck until his mind disappeared, and he rolled down the mountain road like the Iron Knife Bully. Swish, swish, swish. After killing the 2 people, the people above were alarmed. More than a dozen bandits rushed down with weapons, staring at Jun Changxiao with angry eyes. Clang. Jun Changxiao sheathed his sword and said lightly, "Tell your boss that the leader of the Strongest Sect has come to redeem the people." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.